Hey guys, tonight we journey to a time so bleak, so dim that the sun itself gave up for a year and a half. You wake to the faint sting of ash on your eyelids, your breath curling like fog in air that shouldn't be this cold in early spring. Outside your door, if you're lucky enough to still have one, everything is grey. Not dawn grey, not misty romantic grey, dead grey, like the world's been paused halfway through erasing itself. This is 536 AD, and spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're watching from, and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step out from your hut thatch roof cracked walls, the usual, and the first thing that strikes you is the silence. The second thing is that something's not right with the sky. You blink, rub your eyes. Still no sun. The light feels filtered, as if someone smeared soot across the heavens. Which frankly isn't far from the truth. The volcanic ash that chokes the atmosphere today likely came from a cataclysm somewhere far away. Maybe Iceland, maybe El Salvador. Experts still debate which eruption kicked off this global nightmare, but wherever it was, it detonated with the force of a god slamming his fist into the planet. You shuffle down the path toward the communal well. Everything crunches underfoot, not snow but a thin crust of ash. It isn't thick yet, just a constant irritating sprinkle, like the world's largest pepper shaker, won't stop grinding above your head. You sneeze twice. The third one almost knocks you off your feet. Your neighbor Gerwin passes you on the way, eyes sunken, muttering to himself about the sunrise being late. You don't correct him. It hasn't risen properly in weeks. You've given up marking days. The monks used to toll bells at dawn and dusk, but now nobody knows when dusk ends or dawn begins. It's all just twilight. At the well, the water looks darker than usual. You hesitate, staring into the surface. Is that just your reflection or something else beneath it? You scoop it anyway. Taste is a luxury now. Back in your hut, you try to cook something, anything. But the pantry holds only a few withered roots and a small bowl of dried peas. You chew slowly. You pretend you can't hear your stomach begging for more. You're wearing everything you own: wool tunic, patched cloak, 2 pairs of socks, and still you can see your breath. It's supposed to be late spring. Last year, this time, people were planting. This year, the ground's still frozen, and the sky refuses to warm it. Your grandfather used to say the sun rises for the honest. If that's true, then you're surrounded by sinners. Or maybe the sun just quit. Honestly, you'd quit too if you were the sun. You head outside again because the smoke in your hut is thicker than the air outside. The chimney won't draft. Probably clogged with ash again. Everything is slower now. You walk like someone is holding onto your heels. You talk less. You don't dream anymore. Not really. Sometimes you wonder if this is the end. Not just of your village, but of everything. Scholars remain divided on just how global the effects of the volcanic winter were, but in your world, it feels like the end of time. A bird flies overhead, its silhouette flickering in the dim light. You haven't seen many of them lately. The crows left first, then the sparrows, then even the pigeons which you didn't think had the brains to leave. That bird might be the last one you think. Maybe it knows something you don't. The ash starts again, soft like snow, but dirty. It settles in your hair, in your eyes, in your thoughts. You remember a story once told by a traveling merchant about a land where night lasted for months and people went mad waiting for dawn. You thought it was a fable. Now you're not so sure. Someone starts ringing a bell at the edge of the village. Not the church bell it broke weeks ago, but a cowbell tied to a post. That means someone died. Again, you don't go to see who. There's no point. You probably knew them. And if you didn't, you'll meet them soon enough. You huddle by your doorframe watching ash drift onto the empty road. In the distance, the forest is a smudge. The sky above it unmoving. Just grey. Just flat. It reminds you of the bottom of a dried-up lake. A child runs by barefoot. Why barefoot, you don't know. Maybe she lost her shoes, maybe she never had them. She vanishes around the corner, a blur of colour in a world drained of it. The wind picks up. Not strong, just enough to sting. And suddenly you're exhausted. From standing, from thinking, from surviving. You go back inside, crawl into a pile of rough blankets, and let the darkness settle over you. Not because it's night, but because it always is. The ash falls steady now, as if the world is being buried one flake at a time. You wake up shivering. Your teeth are already clattering by the time you peel open your eyelids. No dreams again, just a thick, unshakable cold that seeps into your bones like water into rotting wood. You roll over and pull the scratchy wool tighter, but it's no use. It's not the kind of cold you can fight. It doesn't want to fight. It just wants to stay. Today was supposed to be market day, but that's become a joke. No one has anything to trade except excuses and frostbite. Still, your legs move on their own. Maybe there'll be a carrot. Maybe someone found a turnip. Maybe Gerwin finally dropped dead and left his goat behind. You never thought you'd wish for that, but here we are. You trudge through the half-light boots, crunching through old ash and newer ash. The snow melted weeks ago, but what replaced it is somehow worse. Dry, sharp, and always drifting. It gets into your socks, between your teeth, under your nails. You swear you even feel it in your lungs. As you pass the crumbling fence where the village used to keep pigs before pigs became too expensive to feed your stomach, lets out a dramatic groan. It's been making those more often lately. You pat it like a stubborn mule, but it doesn't care. It wants bread, and you don't even have the idea of bread anymore. At the old chapel, a man with 2 fingers missing sits hunched over a board, scratched with tally marks. He's counting days or maybe deaths. You nod. He doesn't. The market is a sad cluster of people, too tired to be suspicious and too hungry to argue. One woman is offering a bundle of dried moss in exchange for socks. Another man has a dead rat tied to his belt and claims it's pre-cleaned. A boy no older than 10 tries to sell a broken ladle. You watch him with your hands in your cloak, trying not to look as hollow as you feel. Then from across the makeshift square, a shape approaches, slow, deliberate. Your eyes adjust, and it's Father Aldrich dragging a sled with nothing on it but a pile of books. Religious texts, farming guides, a few volumes that might have belonged to the village elder before she starved. He's bartering knowledge now. You wonder if he's finally snapped, or if he's just accepted that words are all he has left. He stops beside you. "One prayer for a cup of soup," he says with a half-smile. You shake your head. No soup, no patience either. He shrugs and moves on, offering benedictions to people too cold to care. In the middle of this miserable little huddle, a woman starts crying. Not loudly, not dramatically, just leaking. Her face doesn't move much, but the tears run anyway. No one comforts her. We all have our own problems. You decide to head home. The light hasn't changed, but your body tells you the day is ending. Time's a slippery thing these days. A grey loop. You used to measure it by bells, roosters, shadows. Now it's just hunger, fatigue, and dread. As you pass the communal storage hut, you spot something. Someone, actually. Little Lena. She's crouched behind a barrel, stuffing something into her mouth. Something crumbly and pale. You approach, and she bolts like a rabbit. But she drops the crust. You pick it up. It's not bread, it's bark. Someone peeled it, ground it, baked it. Pine, maybe. Or birch. People say the Vikings used to do that. Or maybe the Chinese. Or maybe it's just a lie we tell ourselves to make this moment seem less pathetic. You sniff it, then eat it. It's bitter, waxy. Splinters scrape your gums, but your stomach reacts like it's Christmas. You close your eyes and pretend it's cake. You continue home, pine crumbs stuck in your teeth. As you round the last bend, someone's standing by your door. Gerwin, holding a clay jar. "Soup," he says, shaking it slightly. "If you have any salt," you stare at him. He looks worse than yesterday, which you didn't think was possible. His lips are cracked. One eye won't fully open. You can't tell if he's shaking from cold or withdrawal. You invite him in, partly out of pity, partly to see if he actually has soup. He does, sort of. It's warmish water with onion skins, one wilted leaf, and a mystery floating thing. You don't ask. Instead, you find your last pinch of salt and drop it in. You split the soup, sip in silence. Gerwin belches afterward and says luxury. You almost laugh. He offers you a trade, half a candle stub for tomorrow's salt. You nod, knowing you won't have salt tomorrow, but he might not remember anyway. As he leaves, he turns back. You hear about the bishop, he asks. You blink. What about him? Started walking east. Said he's going to find the sun. You shake your head. Maybe he's right. Maybe it's east, or west, or underground. Gerwin shrugs. Can't be darker than here. You watch him vanish into the haze. Then step back inside where your bed of straw smells like damp socks and lost hope. Before you fall asleep, you remember something from childhood. Your mother used to say, "It's darkest before the dawn." And for the first time it occurs to you, what if there's no dawn coming? Whisper one in the comments below, if this tale charms your heart, or two, if it sends shivers down your spine. You wake up to the taste of smoke. It coats your tongue like burnt sugar, minus the sugar, and clings to your nostrils like a bad smell you can't quite place. You sit up slowly, blinking at the pale interior of your hut, which is now darker than usual. Not because it's night, because the air is thicker. Again, you crawl toward the doorway and peel back the hide flap. Outside it's worse. The fog is back, but not the romantic kind. Not the kind poets write about or lovers walk through with lanterns. This one is greasy, grainy, more smoke than mist, more ash than cloud. You wave your hand in front of your face. You can't see your fingers. You squint upward. Still no sun. Just that same woolen smear where the sky used to be. The day feels like it's trapped in a dream halfway between dusk and dawn, and it's been that way for who knows how long. Somewhere in the distance a cough echoes. Then another. It's the village's new soundtrack. You step outside, scarf wrapped tight over your mouth. The air tastes of charcoal and despair. Your lungs feel smaller than they used to. Not in volume, just in faith. Walking through the fog is strange. Sounds don't echo properly. Shapes don't behave. You catch yourself staring too long at a bundled figure, leaning against a fence until you realize it's not a figure, just rags. Or maybe it was a figure, and now it's not. You make your way toward the communal fire pit. Not because you expect warmth, it's mostly ash and stubborn embers, but because it's where people go when they don't want to die alone. A few others are already there. They sit huddled, shoulders touching, not talking, eyes, hollow lips cracked. You take a spot between a boy gnawing on his sleeve and an old woman whispering to herself. You don't ask what she's saying. You're not ready to hear prayers that quiet. Someone's mumbling about the fog. "It's not natural," he says. "It's a curse. The gods are blind, and now so are we." No one corrects him. Not because they agree, just because he might be right. You reach into your pocket and pull out your last stale crust of something. You break it in half, but no one notices. You chew it slowly, imagining it's bread with butter. You used to complain about butter being too salty. Now you'd lick it off someone's boot. A distant scream cuts through the fog, short, sharp, then silence again. No one flinches. That's the worst part. Some scholars now believe that this prolonged fog may have been the result of fine volcanic aerosols, sulfur-rich particles lingering in the stratosphere. Others still debate whether multiple eruptions across different continents combined to darken the skies. The truth doesn't matter to you. All you know is that the world has forgotten how to glow. A girl stands up suddenly and walks straight into the mist. You don't stop her. Nobody does. Maybe she knows the way out. Maybe she doesn't care. You feel your way back toward your hut. The fog follows. It seeps through the cracks, curls under the door, settles into your straw bed like an unwelcome guest. You lie down, pull the blanket over your face, and try to remember color. Blue skies, yellow wheat, red apples. Even green slime would be welcome now. But everything in your head feels grey too. Later you hear footsteps outside. Slow, dragging. You don't move. You don't call out. If it's someone, they'll knock. If it's not, it's better they don't. The fog doesn't lift. It never does. The sound that wakes you this time isn't human. It's a long, low hiss, like wind through teeth, but the air outside is perfectly still. You hold your breath listening. Then it comes again. It's not close, but it's not far enough either. Something's out there, moving, and whatever it is, it's hungry. You sit up slowly, blanket falling from your shoulders like a discarded skin. The room smells like damp earth and smoke. No light filters in through the shutter. Same as always. You feel for your boots, pull them on. The laces snap. You tie them anyway. Outside the village is wrapped in its usual twilight fog. You step carefully, each footfall muffled by the ash-coated ground. A man hobbles past you, with a sack tied to his back and frost in his beard. He doesn't look up. No one does anymore. The sound comes again. You turn your head, and for a moment your blood chills colder than the air. A figure, tall, thin, cloaked in what looks like rags, stands half submerged in the mist across the way. It doesn't move, doesn't breathe. It could be a tree stump, or it could be something else. You blink. It's gone. You shake your head and keep walking. It's been like this for weeks or months. Time drips now, not ticks. Some villagers have stopped speaking altogether, not out of fear, just because there's nothing left to say. Grief has taken their words and buried them in the frozen soil. You pass the bakery, or what used to be one. The walls are blackened from a fire weeks back. Someone tried to bake bark and set the chimney alight. It didn't matter. There was no flour anyway. Just the ghost of what once smelled like bread. You spot Father Aldrich again. He's scribbling symbols in the ash with a stick, whispering something that sounds vaguely like a hymn. You think of asking him what day it is, but he doesn't look up and you're not sure you want to know. Then you hear it laughter. Real, actual laughter. Not the dry bark of madness, but a sound from the chest, rich and round. You follow it like a moth to flame. In a small alley between two leaning huts, you find its source a man crouched beside a bucket, showing a child how to bounce a stone off the rim. He looks up and grins. "Still works," he says. You nod, unsure whether to smile back or cry. Something about it feels alien. Hope number. Not quite, but a glitch in the pattern of gloom. You keep walking. A scholar once proposed that this year of darkness and famine may have contributed directly to the eventual collapse of entire civilizations. Empires, thinned cities, emptied trade routes, dried up. Experts still debate whether the volcanic winter of 536 was the true tipping point or just the first domino in a cascade of chaos. All you know is that your world is shrinking. Each day, fewer voices, fewer footsteps. One man you knew, a kind thatcher named Even, walked out of the village days ago, said he was going to find somewhere with trees that still believe in spring. He hasn't come back. You visit your friend Elska's hut. She used to be a healer. Now she's more of a gatherer of rumours and dry roots. She greets you with hollow eyes and hands you a lump of something wrapped in cloth. "Eat it," she says. "Don't ask." You chew it slowly. It tastes like the bottom of a barrel, but it sits in your stomach like a warm rock, and that's good enough. Then she asks, "Do you dream anymore?" You shake your head. "Not for weeks." She nods. "Me neither. I think the sky stole them." You don't respond. You just sit beside her in silence. It feels like the only honest thing to do. Outside, someone rings the cowbell again. Another death. You don't ask who. If it's someone important, you'll notice when they're missing tomorrow. As the half-light starts to thicken into something resembling evening, you make your way back home. The streets are quieter than usual, and that's saying something. You pass the alley where the man and child played earlier. They're gone now. Only the bucket remains tipped over and cracked. At your door you pause. Listen. No more hissing, no more laughter, just the soft breath of a world trying to remember how to live. You crawl into bed, pull your cloak over your ears and try to hum yourself to sleep, but the tune gets caught in your throat. Tap 3 in the comments below if this story makes you smile, or 4 if it leaves you chilled. The hunger wakes you before the cold does. It's a sharp, twisting thing now. Less a sensation, and more a conversation. Your stomach has opinions. It has stories to tell, memories to share, like that one time you ate 3 eggs in one sitting, or when you licked honey off your fingers and didn't even think about it. It whispers these things as you lie there, blanket barely covering your knees. You get up because lying down won't fill you. Outside, the light hasn't changed. It never does. Just grey upon grey, the sky a dull bruise smeared across the world. You glance toward the hills. Still nothing. No sun, no stars, no horizon. Just fog and fading hope. Someone's hammering wood in the distance. A rare sound. You follow it. The village square has gathered around a curious scene. Berka, the thatcher's widow, is boiling bark. Yes, actual tree bark. She's got a huge pot balanced on stones over a low fire, and she's stirring with a stick like she's making stew. Around her, a few neighbours look on wide-eyed and maybe slightly excited. You inch closer. Pine's the best, she explains to no one in particular. Boil it twice. Scrape it. Dry it. Bake it. You can't tell if she's being serious. But the smell is surprisingly tolerable, like wet earth and wet hope. Someone asks if they can try a piece. She smacks their hand away with the stick. Let it cool. You wait with the others as the pot bubbles and steams. It's the most action this village has seen in weeks. Even the dog. Yes, the dog, the one that usually sleeps by the collapsed mill, has wandered over and is sitting politely at the edge of the crowd. Someone starts passing around cups of warm water flavored with what ash bits of old onion skin. It doesn't matter. It's hot. And it reminds you of soup. A boy beside you whispers. It's like a festival. You almost laugh. Almost. Eventually, Burka scoops the pulp onto a flat rock and starts mashing it into discs. They look like cookies made by someone who's never seen a cookie. Bark bread, she says, smiling a bit too wide. The first person to take a bite makes a face that lands somewhere between awe and indigestion. You take one. It's hard, bitter, fibrous, but it's food, sort of. A fringe theory you once overheard back when people still whispered ideas instead of just coughing suggested that ancient peoples survived famines by turning cellulose into something vaguely edible. They'd grind up tree bark roots, even leather. Scholars remain divided on how widespread this practice was, but your jaw is too busy chewing to debate. The rest of the village catches on quickly. By afternoon, people are outside scraping trees, boiling odd concoctions, roasting moss. Hunger does that. It turns everyone into experimental chefs with zero standards. You make your way back home, half a bark disc in your pocket. You're not saving it for later. You just can't finish it yet. It's like eating your own shoes. Along the way, you pass the edge of the woods, and for the first time in weeks you hear something unexpected: birds. Not a lot, just 2 or 3. A chirp here, a chirp there, but it's real. You stop walking. Close your eyes. The sound is thin, tentative, not joyful, just cautious, like the birds are checking to see if the world is still broken. You look up. Still no sun. But maybe, just maybe, the sky seems a shade lighter than yesterday. Or maybe that's your imagination. Hard to tell now. When you return to your hut, a faint warmth lingers in your chest. Not hope, not quite. Just the echo of a world that might be trying to wake up. You sit by the fire well, the spot where a fire used to be, and nibble the last of your bark bread. It tastes like wood and saltless tears, but it fills a space. Tomorrow you decide you'll try cooking your own. Maybe add moss, maybe not. You've become a connoisseur of desperation cuisine. As you lie down, you whisper to yourself, "Pine is the best." It's not a prayer, it's just survival. By now you've stopped counting how many people are left. You used to know the names of everyone in the village, what they traded, who they married, which cow they swore was smarter than their brother-in-law. Now it's easier to track who's missing than who's still around. Today, as you step outside, you notice the path is quieter. The ash is thinner, sure, but so are the people. Or rather, the ones who haven't left are starting to look like walking spectres, hollow-eyed, sharp-boned, moving like their limbs are strung together by thread and stubbornness. You pass Goethe, once a plump midwife who always smelled of broth and lavender. She sits on her stoop in silence, now knees poking out beneath her hem like knives. Her skin's so thin you can see veins mapping her like rivers on a faded parchment. She gives you a look, and it's the closest thing to a greeting anyone offers these days. You nod. That's the language now. Slight gestures, brief glances. Speaking takes energy. Energy is rationed like food. If you don't need to use it, don't. Down by the stream, or what's left of it, you find what you think is a body. But it moves. Barely. A boy, maybe 12. Maybe 20. Malnutrition makes age hard to guess. He's curled like a comma, arms wrapped around a bundle of rags that might be his coat, might be his dinner, or might be both. You kneel beside him. He doesn't flinch, just blinks slowly, eyes as grey as the sky. "Are you okay?" you ask. He licks his lips. "I'm waiting for the rain," he whispers. You nod, though the clouds haven't cried in weeks. Maybe they're out of tears too. On the walk back, you try not to think about it. You try not to see every person as a before and after sketch. But it's hard. You remember Jorik the carpenter, tall, strong, loud. Yesterday he tripped over his own boots and didn't get up for several minutes. No one helped. We've all learned to save our hands for carrying, not lifting. Scholars today estimate that the volcanic winter of 536 led to crop failures and mass famine across large parts of Europe and Asia. While the specifics vary by region, what is consistent in historical records is a sharp rise in mortality and a haunting drop in recorded births. The world didn't just starve, it stopped growing. You reach the village square just as a cart rolls in from the outer fields. It's not carrying vegetables, or firewood, or even goods to trade. It's carrying people. 3, maybe 4 of them, stacked gently, like firewood that used to breathe. A man jumps down from the front Ulf, the blacksmith's cousin. He wipes his hands on his tunic and looks around. Chapel or pit, he asks. No one answers. It doesn't really matter. The chapel's full. The pit's less full but less sacred. You help unload. You don't recognize any of the faces, which feels like a relief. Then, as you shift one of the bodies, a thin silver ring catches the light. It's your old neighbor's, the woman who made the best cheese. You didn't even know she was gone. You help carry her to the pit. It's not deep. You don't have the tools or the energy. It's really just a ditch behind the mill that's been getting longer and wider. Some people leave crosses. Others don't bother. You tuck her ring into your pocket without thinking. You'll bring it to her daughter, or keep it. Who knows? The worst part isn't the smell. You've adjusted. The worst part is how quiet it is. No prayers, no weeping, just the occasional grunt when someone lifts or stumbles. It's all become so procedural. Experts still debate whether the death toll during 536 and the years following was due primarily to famine, disease, or cold. But they agree on one thing: it was bad. Really bad. Whole communities vanished. Languages went extinct. And somehow you're still here hauling strangers into holes. Back home you sit on the floor. No appetite. No fire. Just a dull ache in your arms from digging. You stare at your hands. They look older than they did last month. Your nails are cracked. Your knuckles swollen. You wonder how much of you is still you. You hear footsteps and glance toward the door. A child peeks in. The bark-bred girl. She says nothing, just stares, then slowly holds out a stick. Roasted grasshoppers skewered like a kebab. You take it. She vanishes into the fog again. You bite. Crunch. Swallow. Protein, they say. You lie down and wait for sleep. You hope you don't dream of the pit. You dream of sunlight. Not the cold grey imposter that's hovered over your days for months now, but real sunlight, golden and sharp, pouring through trees, warming your face. You can almost feel it on your skin, a memory so vivid it jolts you upright in your bed of straw. And just like that, it's gone. The cold rushes back in the familiar weight on your chest, the damp blanket twisted around your legs. You blink at the pale, lifeless glow leaking through the cracks in your shutter. No sun, of course. You shuffle outside. Today something feels different. Not better, not worse, just off. The air smells faintly of rot, mixed with something oddly sweet. You glance toward the woods and notice smoke-thin columns, several of them rising steadily in the distance. Strange. No one has wood to burn anymore. You head toward the village centre, boots crunching on the ever-present crust of ash. You pass old Lars tending to his patch of garden. Or what used to be a garden. He's digging holes in the dirt and filling them with stones. Keeps the worms from talking, he mutters. You don't ask. At the well, people are whispering. A merchant passed through early this morning, not with goods news. Apparently beyond the mountains in some village with an unpronounceable name, they're eating mice. Not just catching them, farming them, feeding them grain paste and harvesting litters like cabbages. You lean against the stone wall imagining that. A room full of mice, warm and wriggling like living bread. It should make your stomach turn, but instead your mouth waters. Someone nearby says they heard of a place where people have started eating clay. Another claims people in the east are mixing ashes into porridge to fool the belly. Scholars still debate whether famine-era populations ever turned to soil consumption, but you can believe it. You'd chew a candle if it had texture. A scrawny girl nearby holds up a bird skull. This was dinner, she says, and laughs like it's the cleverest joke in the world. The silence that follows is sharp. You drift toward the chapel. Not for prayer, for warmth. The door creaks open to reveal a small fire, miracle of miracles, and 4 villagers sitting in a circle, hands outstretched, eyes unfocused. No one's talking, just staring into the flames like they're trying to hypnotize themselves into comfort. You slide in beside them. The fire crackles. You notice someone's burning a book. Not scripture, just some chronicle from the elder's hut. You watch the pages curl inward like sleeping fingers. Nothing in there we don't already know, the man says flatly. You nod. Truth doesn't need to be reread. Not now. Outside, the smoke from the woods thickens. You step out, shielding your eyes. Shapes begin to form through the haze, people walking slowly. Strangers, dirty thin but moving with purpose, a small caravan. They arrive by dusk. 10 of them, maybe 12, faces like yours worn weary. They bring no food, but they bring stories. One of them, a tall woman with a long gash across her cheek, speaks while everyone gathers. "We came from the east," she says. "We crossed 5 villages. 3 were burned. 1 was empty. 1 was eating itself. You don't ask what that means. But the last one," she adds, "had sunlight. Real sunlight." Murmurs ripple through the crowd. "Just for a few hours. A gap in the clouds," she says. "They danced in it." You close your eyes and imagine it. Feet on dirt. Arms raised. A world where the sky smiles again. Then she says, "But it closed up. Like it never happened. That feels right." Like the sun was teasing. You offer her a bark disc. She takes it, chews, nods. "Pine." You smile. "It's the best." She grins. "Spruce is better." You talk a little more, but not for long. Night is coming, or at least the colder version of the same endless grey. As you return to your hut, you pass someone carving something into the wall of the well. You stop and watch. It says, "We are still here." Simple. True. You wonder how long it will stay there before the ash wears it away. You wake to silence, but not the comfortable kind. It's the wrong kind. The kind that makes you hold your breath and tilt your head like an animal sensing danger. No wind, no rustling, no coughs from neighbouring huts, no distant bells, nothing. You sit up slowly. The air feels heavier than usual. Drier too. You rub your eyes and notice smudges on your fingers, soot but thicker. Oily. When you step outside, your boots stick slightly to the earth. The ground is coated in a fine black powder that glistens faintly. This isn't the usual ash. It's darker, denser, almost inky. You look up. The sky is still its flat eternal grey, but now with a darker centre like a bruise spreading from above. No birds, no movement. Just the slow, smothered descent of these thick flakes. Someone's shouting near the chapel. You follow the sound and find a small crowd gathered staring at the ground. At first you think someone's collapsed, but it's not a person. It's parchment. Dozens of pages soaked in soot curling at the corners. Bits of ink smear like tears across the surface. Monastic script familiar, but fading. Father Aldrich is on his knees beside them, mouth open, stunned. "The ink is gone," he mutters. "It melted right off." You step closer. He's right. The scrolls, the ones used to copy scripture, local history, even folk songs are ruined. Not burned, just bled. The letters have wept themselves away. Stories lost without fire. The black powder, you realize, isn't just ash. It's mixed with soot, yes, but also some oily residue, possibly volcanic sulfur mixing with humidity. Experts still debate the exact chemical composition of the material that fell from the sky in 536, but contemporary records speak of black snow and sunless dust, so thick it could be scooped like flour. One monk is crying. "These were from the great library at Norwald," he says, "copied by candlelight, carried on foot. Now look at them." A girl near you mutters. "Can't eat words." No one responds. She's not wrong. Someone else points at the chapel's walls, once decorated with simple paintings of saints and local legends. Now they look like they've been smudged by filthy hands. The ash has seeped in, dulling the colours until all the faces blur into grey blotches. Saints turn to shadows. You return to your hut, but something follows you, an itch at the base of your neck. A sense that something important just disappeared and you didn't even know what it was. You used to love stories. The monks would read aloud on winter nights, long tales of knights, giants, sea serpents, and sky chariots. Now those pages lie in the mud, their meanings soaked into the dirt. That night, you stare at your ceiling, not for comfort, just for something to look at. You wonder what future generations, if there are future generations, will know about this time. Will they call it the Great Darkness, the Long Famine, or just to forget? You imagine a scholar centuries from now, dusting off fragments of bone and bark bread recipes, trying to piece together a world no one bothered to record because parchment was too precious to waste on misery. You whisper a story aloud to yourself, one your mother told you back when the hearth was warm and the stew smelled of garlic. You can't remember the ending, but you say it anyway. just to hear it, just to keep it alive. You're not surprised when the bell rings again. One clang, pause, two more, then silence. That's the new code. One for illness, two for death. It's not official, no one voted on it. It just happened. Like the ash, like everything else. You toss on your cloak, feeling the fabric stiff with smoke. You smell like a chimney that gave up halfway through the job. Outside, the air is thick and sour. Not acidic exactly, but there's a faint tang that catches in the back of your throat. Another body. You know it before you see it. The crowd gathered near the chapel is sparse, silent. Faces lowered, eyes dulled by too much repetition. You push your way through, and there he is, old Martin. A thatcher. Once had the loudest laugh in the village. Now folded on himself, knees drawn in, face slack like a dropped puppet. They say he was walking home when he fell. Just tipped sideways and didn't get up. No warning, no scream, just stopped. You help lift him. He's light, too light. His cloak slips open, and your breath catches not from grief, but shock. His ribs press so hard against the skin they look like a second skeleton trying to escape. His face is peaceful in that awful way, like he already left hours ago, and his body only just caught on. You carry him to the grave pit. It's deeper now, slightly. Someone's been working on it. Maybe out of duty. Maybe out of fear that the pile will grow taller than the people standing around it. You lower Martin in. No prayers. No markers. Just a quiet thud as the body settles against the rest. Then you go home. Your hands are black with ash and something else, something stickier. You wash them in cold water and stare at the ripples, thinking about how often you've done this lately. This routine, this ritual. You used to bury strangers, then acquaintances. Now it's people you knew. People who taught you things. People who borrowed your tools. People whose names still echo in your mind when you lie awake at night. There's no ceremony anymore. A few weeks ago, Father Aldrich insisted on saying words over each burial. Now he just nods. His eyes are red. Not from tears, from fatigue. Scholars remain divided on how communities responded emotionally to the volcanic winter. Some records describe mass panic, others numb silence. Maybe both are true. Maybe people flickered between them like you do, swinging from horror to apathy and back again. That night you can't sleep. You lie on your side and stare at the wall. You imagine a time when death was rare enough to grieve properly, when it had weight, space. Now it's part of the rhythm. You think about Martin's laugh. He used to slap his thigh so hard it echoed off the rafters. Used to sing drinking songs out of tune and dare others to do worse. Once he painted a goat blue for midsummer and blamed it on fairies. You whisper his name, quiet, like an apology. The next morning someone knocks. It's Elska. She doesn't say anything, just holds up a bundle of dried nettles. Bitter, stringy things, but they boil well. You nod and take them. She turns to leave. Did you know Martin, you ask? She pauses. He owed me 2 eggs, she says. Then softer, he was kind. You boil the nettles that night. Add water ash, a strip of old salt pork you've been hoarding like treasure. The soup tastes like regret, but it warms you. You light a stub of candle and set it by the door. Not for Martin exactly. Just in case light matters. You sit there until the flame dies. Then you go to bed. You wake in what should be morning, but it's not. The world looks exactly the same as it did when you shut your eyes, dim, grey, flat. You can't tell whether it's 6 a.m. or 6 p.m., or just somewhere in between forever. The sky no longer signals time. It just hovers there like a smothering lid, keeping everything stale. You step outside, and for a second, you stop. Because the light, if you can call it that, has a strange hue today. Not brighter, but different, as if someone added a drop of bruised blue to the endless grey. You squint at the horizon. A long time ago, you could see the treetops to the north and the hills curling beyond them. Now it's all a smeared blur, like the world is a charcoal sketch that someone dragged a thumb across. You've noticed something else too. There are no shadows anymore. Not really. Even when fires burn, even when people move, there's no sharp contrast, no clear outline. Just soft bleeding forms, as if the world has forgotten how to define anything. You wander through the village with your arms wrapped tight against your chest, fingers hooked under your ribs as though trying to hold yourself together. A dog follows you. It might be yours. You're not sure. They all look alike now. Scrawny, nervous, skittish. You pass the church bell hanging askew. The rope snapped 2 days ago, and no one's fixed it. It just sits there silent, like everything else. Back near the edge of the field, you find something bizarre. A single dandelion. Yellow, bright, defiant. You stare at it like it's a hallucination. Is it real? You crouch. Touch it. Yes. You glance around to see if anyone else is noticing. A child stands a few paces away, eyes wide. You look at each other and share something wordless awe. Confusion, maybe fear. Then a wind stirs not much, just a lazy breath, and the dandelion bends slightly. A second later, it snaps off at the root and drifts away on the breeze. Gone. You don't speak, neither does the child. Later that day, someone claims they saw sunlight. Actual sunlight. A golden flicker through the clouds near the western ridge. They say it lasted a full minute before vanishing again. Others scoff. A few gasp. Most just shrug. Scholars today agree that the sky in 536 remained dimmed for 12 to 18 months. Some sources describe it as a permanent twilight, others as a sun without shadow. Experts still debate whether the haze was from stratospheric ash sulfate aerosols or a mix of both. But what's certain is this time itself broke. You used to measure life by the sun rising, setting, moving across the sky like a god's golden eye. Now there's nothing to measure with. Your body keeps trying to follow the old rhythm. Sleep, eat, work, rest, but the cues are all gone. You've seen people wander the village at odd hours, eyes hollow, as if they woke from a nap that lasted too long or too little. They eat when they remember, sleep when they fall. Some don't bother at all. Back in your hut, you light a stub of candle and try to count the seconds it takes to burn down one notch. You lose count. You lie on your bed, staring at the ceiling, and realize you're forgetting things. Names. Smells. What fresh bread feels like in your hands. What color the river used to be. You once painted a door red. You remember that. But when you think of the color now, it feels imaginary. You close your eyes and try to remember a sunny day. Just one. You picture your mother hanging clothes on a line, the shadows stretching sharp across the grass, the sun so bright you had to squint. But the memory doesn't stay. It slides out of focus, fades to grey like everything else. Outside, someone starts singing, a low hum off-key, maybe a lullaby, maybe something invented on the spot. You let it wash over you. Even if you can't see the sun anymore for a moment, you feel its absence like a bruise. You miss it with your whole body. And still the sky refuses to change. Today is a feast day. At least it should be. You don't remember which saint it honors. No one seems to, but someone found an old calendar page tucked in a dusty Bible, and it had a symbol scratched next to this date. A starburst. A halo. Maybe a fish. You can't tell anymore. But you all agree it means something. So the village holds a celebration. Of sorts. The square has been swept. Not clean, just clearer. The ash has been kicked aside into sad grey mounds, like little graves for forgotten intentions. Someone draped a strip of faded cloth across 2 fence posts. It used to be blue. Now it's the colour of overboiled cabbage. The feast is bark bread as usual, but today someone added dried mint to the batch. It smells like old toothpaste. You chew slowly and pretend it's cake. No one complains. You've learned that even pretending is a luxury. Elska brings out a pot of broth that tastes like boiled weeds and thyme. You sip it like it's rare wine, each spoonful warming your fingers more than your throat. Then someone starts clapping. Not at anything, just clapping. A slow, steady rhythm. Others join in. It echoes strangely against the chapel walls, a sound that doesn't belong to this century, or maybe even this world. Children begin to dance. It's more like swaying really awkward, uncertain limbs like sticks. But it's movement. It's life. You smile in spite of yourself. And then something ridiculous happens. Burka, the widow who once boiled bark, stands on a wooden crate and announces, "We are holding a pageant." The crowd blinks. She points at you. You'll play the sun. There's a pause. You look around waiting for someone else to protest. No one does. You shrug and step forward. She hands you a circle cut from thin bark, painted with what might be saffron or mustard. Lift it high, she says, and move very, very slowly. So you do. The children cheer, or they try to. It's more of a wheeze chuckle, but it's something. Then someone else, Father Aldrich of all people, wraps a blanket around himself and says, I am the moon. I am cold and jealous. He follows you trailing dramatically. People start laughing, and for one brief, unbelievable moment, the village remembers how to make fun of the sky. Scholars still debate the psychological effects of extended atmospheric dimming on early medieval societies. Some theorize it led to mass religious conversions, others to cult behavior or ritual suicide. But in your village, it leads to a fake parade where you pretend to be the sun while children cough their way through a slow-motion waltz. Burka even composes a song. The lyrics go, Blessed be the boiling tree that feeds us bark and sets us free. It's terrible. You hum it all day. By late afternoon, if that word still has meaning, the pageant winds down. People retreat to their homes, bellies slightly fuller, spirits slightly higher. It's not happiness, but it's the ghost of something like it. As you walk back to your hut, you pass a wooden sign someone nailed to a post. It reads, Year without summer festival. All welcome. Underneath in smudged charcoal. Next performance, TBD. You chuckle. Out loud. The sound startles you. That night, wrapped in your cloak, you think about the absurdity of it all. Pretending to be the sun, children dancing in ash, a festival with no food. And yet, it felt real. The sky outside is the same dull bruise it's been for months. The air still smells like burnt wood and wet wool. But something is different inside you. Not hope, not quite, just a flicker, like a candle relighting itself after a gust. You close your eyes and whisper, Blessed be the boiling tree. You're chewing bark when your tooth cracks. At first you think it's a splinter, some stubborn sliver that got lodged sideways in your molar. But then you bite down again and feel the sharp, unmistakable jolt of something internal giving up. You spit the rest into your palm, and there it is, a jagged piece of enamel streaked with brown lying on top of chewed pine pulp, like a tiny white tombstone. You stare at it for a long time. Losing a tooth used to be a childhood right. Now it feels like a warning. You press your tongue to the gap. It's raw, swollen, maybe infected. You wouldn't be the first. Goethe's jaw swelled last month until her face ballooned like a gourd. She stopped eating, then stopped speaking. You haven't seen her since. Back inside your hut, you rummage through your pouch, your precious medical kit of 5 useless things. A bent pin, 2 threadbare cloth strips, a pebble you once thought was medicinal, and a crushed sprig of dried thyme. Nothing to fix a tooth, nothing to numb pain. You settle for rinsing with cold water and salt. There's barely enough left. You flinch as it hits the wound, and your eyes water instantly. That night you eat only broth. Even that hurts. By morning the swelling has started. Your face feels heavy on one side as if gravity's choosing favorites. The pain pulses like a drumbeat behind your eye. You sit in the doorway of your hut watching the world blur through watery vision. A child walks by holding a string of fish bones. No meat, just bones. You're not even sure where they got them. The river's been empty for weeks. You glance toward the chapel and see a monk with cheeks sunken like riverbeds. He's writing something in the dirt with a stick again. A record, maybe. A prayer. A timeline. No one will read. You shuffle over one hand pressed to your cheek. What day is it, you ask? He shrugs. Between yesterday and never. That feels about right. Back in your hut you lie down and try not to move. Every breath shifts something in your jaw. The pulsing becomes rhythmic like a metronome for your misery. You remember a story your mother once told you sailors on long voyages would bleed from the gums and lose teeth like falling stars. She called it the curse of the seamouth. Only later did you learn the real name scurvy. Scholars believe scurvy became common in many famine periods, including after 536. The lack of fresh greens, fruits, even clean water, all a perfect storm. The disease didn't just rot bodies. It broke spirits. Open wounds. Spontaneous bleeding. Fragile bones. Like the human form forgetting how to hold itself together. Your mouth tastes like rust. You sleep in short bursts, dreaming of chewing things, apples, roast chicken bread with poppy seeds, only to wake mid-bite with a gasp. You think of Martin, how small he felt when you carried him. His teeth had all fallen out. You wonder if yours will too. That evening Elska visits. She peers at your face, winces, then kneels and smears something on your gums. It smells like crushed mint and dirt. This won't fix it, she says gently. But it might help you sleep. You don't ask what it is. You trust her, or at least you trust her more than you trust your own luck. Before she leaves, she hands you a piece of linen folded tight. You unwrap it to find something miraculous. A turnip slice. You look up at her in disbelief. She grins. Chew with the other side. You laugh. It hurts. You laugh anyway. That night, you lie on your side, cradling the sore half of your face like a wounded animal. Outside the wind rustles faintly. An unfamiliar sound, almost like real air moving through real trees. The pain doesn't stop, but it's quieter. And so finally are you. You've lost track of how many layers you're wearing. Wool over linen, burlap over wool, a second tunic tied backward, and an old cloak someone once used to wrap a piglet. You're less a person now, and more a walking pile of stitched-together desperation. You look ridiculous. You know this. But you're warm, or at least less cold, and that's all that matters. Today's goal: find more fabric. Anything will do. A sack, a curtain, an old banner from the church basement. Once you would have turned up your nose at such things. Now you pray for a decent potato sack like it's a royal gift. You head to the old granary, now abandoned. The building leans slightly, as if exhausted by its own emptiness. You step inside, careful not to kick up too much dust or ash. It's always hard to tell the difference now. The floor is bare. No grain, of course. But in the corner behind a collapsed shelf, you spot a bundle of cloth. You hurry over and tug it free. A child's blanket. Faded pink, stained in places, but soft. Soft is rare. You run your fingers over it, then quickly tuck it under your tunic. You'll wrap it around your legs at night. Maybe even sleep without shivering. A luxury. As you turn to leave, you hear footsteps behind you. Gerwin. Of course it's Gerwin. He eyes your bundle. Trade you. Hesitate. He pulls something from his sleeve, a pair of fingerless gloves. Leather cracked but still whole. You trade. Silently. Back outside, the wind picks up, biting through your patched sleeves. You pull the gloves on. Your fingers sigh with relief. Near the chapel, someone's strung up a line of fabric between two posts. Not clothes flags. Makeshift ones. Squares of dyed cloth scribbled with chalk or ash. You walk closer. One reads "still breathing," another "not yet a ghost," and one simply says "warmer than you." You grin. It's a bitter grin. But it's a grin. The flags flap weakly, like they're trying to remind the world what movement looks like. Scholars now believe that during the mid-6th century, temperatures across the northern hemisphere dropped by as much as 2.5 degrees Celsius. That may not sound like much, but for agrarian societies without insulation, it was devastating. The growing seasons shrank. Snow fell in June. Frost killed seedlings before they reached their second leaf. Even wool couldn't always help. You duck into Elska's hut. She's stitching something, two cloaks sewn into a makeshift blanket. Her fingers tremble, but her hands don't stop. Know anyone who died from cold this week? She asks flatly. You pause. No one knew. She nods. Progress. She hands you a bundle. Rags. She shakes her head. Socks. You hold them up. Mismatched. Stitched from curtain and glove lining. But socks. You smile. Blessed be the boiling tree, you mutter. She snorts. Later that evening, you wrap yourself in every layer you own and sit by your fire pit. There's no fire, but the ritual remains. You rock slightly. Hum a tune. Your new socks itch, which means they're doing their job. A passing boy sees you and waves. His fingers are wrapped in strips of red cloth. Look, he says proudly. Fashion. You salute him with your gloved hand. Somewhere in the distance, someone sneezes. No one says bless you anymore. You're not sure if it's because of etiquette or exhaustion. You lie down that night with 3 tunics, 2 cloaks, a curtain over your legs, and your head wrapped in a scarf that once belonged to a goat. You still wake up cold, but not as cold. And somehow, that's enough. You are not proud of what you're about to do, but hunger rewrites the rules. It's evening, though. That word means less than ever, and you're sitting cross-legged on the floor of your hut, staring at a candle. Not for light, for food. You've done the math. It's beeswax, not tallow. That's important. Tallow candles are disgusting and probably dangerous. Beeswax, though, still disgusting, but possibly edible. You pick it up. It smells like old honey and wood smoke. The wick is burnt black and curled. You scrape it off. You break off a chunk. Your stomach growls in anticipation or fear. You place the piece in your mouth and bite. It's like chewing earwax soaked in regret. Still you chew. There's no joy in it, no satisfaction, just the dull knowledge that something is in your stomach, something vaguely caloric. Halfway through the second bite, your body makes a decision. Enough. You gag, barely make it to the bucket. The candle lands in the corner, a bitten stump sad and slightly glistening. You sit back dizzy and ashamed, and then you laugh. Because somehow you've reached a point in life where you just tried to eat light. The irony isn't lost on you. You remember something a traveller once told you in some distant land. The starving poor ate mud mixed with animal fat, and called it survival. You didn't believe them. Now you do. You suspect mud might taste better than candle. Outside the village is restless. Someone is shouting. Another argument over food, most likely. You peek through a crack in the shutter. A woman is holding up a pot, screaming that someone stole her stew. Across from her, an older man, barefoot shaking, insists he only took the bones. You close the shutter again. Experts remain divided on the prevalence of famine-driven hysteria. Some believe it sparked outbreaks of violence and madness. Others argue most people simply decayed inward, too weak to fight. In your village it seems to be both. You lie down and think about how many things you once called inedible. Bark, leather, wax, even pages from old books. Elska tried that once. Boiled them into paste. Said the ink gave her strange dreams. The candle still sits in the corner mocking you. You consider burying it, giving it a funeral. Instead you break off another piece. This time you melt it first. Hold it over a weak flame, watch it turn to liquid, then dip your finger and taste. Better. Not good, but less solid. You imagine starting a cookbook. Apocalypse recipes. 50 Shades of Grey Food. Chapter 1 Pine Bark. Chapter 2 Candle Soup. Chapter 3 Thoughts. You fall asleep giggling at your own joke. That night you dream of a banquet. A real one. Roasted meat, soft cheese, warm bread figs, with honey wine that tastes like summer. But when you reach out to eat, everything turns to wax in your hands. Plates melt, cups burn your fingers, the meat hisses and fades. You wake with your mouth tasting of nothing, and your heart aching for something real. The candle is gone. You check every corner of the hut. You didn't eat it all, did you? Then you see the dog curled in the corner, licking its lips, wax on its whiskers. You sigh. You pat its head. You forgive it. You'd have done the same. You've stopped sleeping through the night. Not because of the cold, though, that's part of it. Not because of the hunger, though, that too never fully leaves. No, it's the scratching. Every night around the same time you hear it. Scritch, scritch, pause, then again. Sometimes close. Sometimes farther. Always just out of reach. You've checked the walls, the floor, the bedding. Nothing. Elska says it's probably mice, or rats, or ghosts. She says all three chew in the dark. Tonight, though, you finally catch it. You light your last candle stub and creep toward the corner of your hut where the scratching seems strongest. Your breath fogs in the air. You crouch. You wait. And there it is. Not a rat. Not a ghost. A beetle. Large, fat, black. Antennae twitching like it's tuning itself to a silent frequency. You stare at it. It stares back. Then it scuttles behind your cooking pot and vanishes. You don't chase it. You're not sure if you're relieved or disappointed. Outside, the chapel bell rings once. Another death. You step out and join the procession, what little remains of it. 4 people. A broken sled. A burlap-wrapped shape. No one speaks. The wind is dry and sharp, like broken promises. The grave pit now has a second pit beside it. The first one filled too fast. As you lower the body in, you catch a glimpse of their face. You knew her once. Alna. She made scented soap from goat milk and herbs. She used to smell like lavender and cloves. Now she smells like damp wool and endings. Someone drops a small carved cross in after her. It lands with a soft thock on her chest. Then you cover her with dirt and go back to your hut. Later that night, the scratching returns. You don't bother checking. You lie awake and listen. Try to make peace with it, until something else interrupts a cough. Not yours. From the next hut over. Wet, ragged, prolonged. You close your eyes and pray it stops. It doesn't. You hear someone shuffle outside, knock once on the chapel door, then leave. A few minutes later, soft chanting begins. Monks murmuring prayers through cracked lips huddled in their ash-dusted robes. You remember the relics kept inside that chapel, splinters of saints' bones in velvet boxes. They used to bring comfort. Now they bring fleas, and mice, and perhaps plague. There's a theory whispered, not official, that the darkness has stirred things deeper than cold or famine. Something old, something unclean. You heard it from Gerwin, who swears he saw a man rise from the grave pit and walk into the woods. He was drunk, probably. But still, the scratching grows louder. You sit up suddenly, sure that something is in the room with you. Not a beetle, something bigger. You light a twist of straw and hold it high. Just shadows, just ash, just your own heartbeat pounding in your ears. You lower the light and lie back down, telling yourself it's the wind. Experts still debate whether widespread hallucinations and night terrors became common during prolonged famine events. Some accounts describe visions of demons, spirits, or even saints with melting faces. Others believe these were simply fever dreams, or side effects of desperation. You drift into a half-sleep, twitching at every sound. Your dreams are filled with insects the size of dogs scratching at your feet, crawling into your ears, whispering in forgotten languages. When you wake, the scratching has stopped. In its place, silence. A silence so thick it presses against your ribs. You sit up slowly. In the doorway of your hut there's a small pile of bones. Clean. Picked. You stare at them. You don't scream. You just close the door and sit with your back against it. Until morning, or whatever passes for morning now. You used to trust the river. It was the only thing that made sense. Always flowing, always cold, always whispering the same song. Even when the sky turned to ash and the fields refused to grow, the river kept doing what rivers do. Until now. Today the river is wrong. You notice it the moment you step outside. The air smells off wet and sour, like old dishwater mixed with something metallic. You walk toward the edge of the village, down the worn footpath past the abandoned mill. The sound reaches you first, a low, lazy gurgle. Too slow, too thick. You round the last tree and there it is. The river is no longer a river. It's a mud-slicked snake, barely moving. The banks are swollen, pulsing with trapped water. It looks like someone spilled oil into it. Dark iridescent swirls shimmering on the surface like bruises. You crouch and dip a stick into it. It comes out coated in sludge. Your reflection, once warped by playful ripples, now stares back flat and dull. You look like you've been preserved in tar. You run your tongue over your broken tooth and wonder, is this the water that's been in my soup? You back away. Someone calls from behind, a boy, maybe 12, waving frantically. You follow him without asking why. Questions waste energy. He leads you to a collapsed hut near the southern path. The roof caved in days ago and now water is pooling inside. But that's not the problem. The problem is the smell. Rot. Swamp. Rot again. Your throat tightens. Inside someone had stored dried fish, likely salted, though there's no salt left now. The river overflowed last night and soaked the cache. Now the fish are ballooning, splitting open their bellies filled with worms that shouldn't be here this early in the season. You step back, gagging. The boy shrugs. We were going to eat them. You nod slowly. Because of course they were. Back at the village, people are talking. The river's rising, but not freezing. It's May, or it should be. But the frost came back just last week. Now this, it makes no sense. A monk suggests divine punishment. Another says it's a sign to move. A third mutters something about poisoned clouds. You remember a theory from a traveller who passed through before the world went grey, that when the sun hides for too long, the rivers forget how to behave. It sounded ridiculous at the time. Now you're not so sure. Experts today argue that the volcanic winter likely disrupted rainfall patterns across vast regions. In some places, rivers dried up entirely. In others, floods came unexpectedly, triggered by permafrost shifts and glacial melts. The jury's out on exactly how this played out in each corner of the world, but you don't need a scholar to tell you that your river isn't listening anymore. That evening you boil water twice before drinking. It still smells strange, but it doesn't kill you. Yet. You try to sleep but keep thinking of the river. You dream of it climbing through the village like a snake made of ink. It slides under doors into mouths down throats. People open their eyes filled with black water. You wake with a start. In the silence of your hut, you swear you can hear dripping. You light a stub of candle. Look around. Nothing. But your boots are damp. You touch the floor. It's wet. You look up. No leaks. The water came from below. You're not sure when the trees gave up. One day they were just there, leaning into the wind, arms outstretched like they remembered what summer felt like. The next they were statues, stuck, stiff, stripped down to skeletal outlines. They didn't fall exactly, they just stopped trying. You walk into the woods hoping for kindling. The village fire pit burned its last usable log 3 days ago, and now everyone's scraping at roots or trading for twigs like it's currency. You carry a blunt hatchet and a sack stitched from curtain ends. Your breath puffs out in ghostly coils. The forest is silent, too silent. Even the birds have stopped faking their existence. You reach a familiar birch and knock your knuckles against it. The sound is wrong hollow, like tapping a coffin. You press your palm to its trunk. Cold, unmoving. You swing the hatchet. It bounces back. The tree doesn't even flinch. You try another. A pine this time. The bark peels brittle as dry parchment, underneath greyish-green wood that smells faintly of rot. It shouldn't be like this. Pine is supposed to be resinous alive. You take a few strips and move on. Farther in you find what you came for, a fallen branch, still whole, dry enough to burn but not yet rotten. You pull it free and tie it with twine. It'll do. You bend to grab more and freeze. A figure is standing just beyond the clearing. Still. Silent. Not looking at you, not doing anything. Just standing. You call out. It doesn't move. You blink. It's gone. You stay still for a long time. Then you leave. You don't tell anyone. That night you return with the wood. It's not much. Enough for a small fire that lasts an hour. You invite Elska over. You both sit in front of it, faces stretched toward the light, like plants in need of sun. She tells you something strange. The village's outer fences are missing posts. Not stolen. Not broken. Gone. She counted yesterday. Today there are fewer. You ask if she's sure. She nods. I know how many posts we have. I fixed most of them. You don't say it aloud, but the thought slips in anyway. Maybe the trees are taking themselves back. Scholars now agree that prolonged low temperatures during 536 and the following years severely affected forest growth. Tree rings from that period show stunted expansion. Some even show none at all, as if time stopped growing. There are theories about ash toxicity, poisoned rain, altered soil pH. But you don't need theories. You have stumps. Back in your hut you split one of the branches. It splinters awkwardly. The wood inside is soft, almost damp. You scrape it anyway. Start the fire, watch the smoke twist up into the rafters and vanish through a crack. The warmth is brief, temporary. Elska hums beside you. It's a song from before. You remember the words, but you don't sing. Speaking still costs more than it's worth. When the fire dies, neither of you moves to relight it. You just sit. Later, alone, you try to draw a tree from memory. Just for yourself. Just to see if you still can. But your lines come out thin and brittle like the trees you now know. You crumple the paper and feed it to the flame. It burns better than the pine. The rumor arrives before the scream. You hear it whispered at the well. First two women trading gossip like it's bread. Low voices. Shifty eyes. A phrase floats past your ear. They ate someone. You pause, pretending to adjust your shawl. You didn't hear it from me, one says. You hear it from everyone, says the other. You keep walking faster than usual. By midday, it's all anyone's talking about. A family on the southern ridge. 3 people, one disappeared. The other 2 are still there. Quiet. Not mourning. Just full. You find Elska near the chapel. Her face is pale. It's probably a lie, she says. People say strange things when they're hungry. You nod. But that night someone screams. It's not a startled scream. It's not a cry for help. It's the kind of scream that comes from discovering something you weren't meant to see. You bolt upright. Grab your cloak. Open the door slowly. Fog. Of course. Always fog. And something else, silence deep and dense, as if the scream sucked all other sound into its void. You creep toward the sound's direction, toward the lower edge of the village. You see a woman, burqa, kneeling in the dirt, shaking eyes wide. She doesn't speak. Behind her, a hut stands open. The smell hits you before you even cross the threshold. Iron, rot, smoke. Inside, something's been cooked. Not meat, not really. But it smells close enough to make your stomach twist and your knees wobble. You don't stay long. No one does. The next day that hut is empty. Its door nailed shut. No explanation. No confrontation. No justice. Just silence. And more whispers. Experts remain deeply divided on whether cannibalism actually occurred during the volcanic winter of 536. Most written records are vague, metaphorical, allegorical, or censored. But certain archaeological sites suggest desperate measures: bone markings, cooking fires, strange absences. In your village, you know the truth doesn't matter. The fear is the truth. That night, you do something you've never done before. You bolt your door. You stack a crate against it. Tie twine across the handle. It's not much. It wouldn't stop anyone determined. But it helps you breathe. For a while, until you hear a soft knock. 1, then 2, then nothing. You sit with your back against the door all night, knife in hand, eyes wide. You don't sleep. In the morning, the knock is gone. But so is the dog. The one that used to sleep by your hut, the one with the wax on its whiskers. You find paw prints in the ash, and nothing else. You don't talk about it. No one does. Instead, you work on your fire pit. You gather sticks. You help carry a dead goat down to the communal storage. You grind pine bark. You sip cold broth and pretend it's stew. But when someone asks if you've seen Elska, you lie. You say she's out collecting nettles, even though her hut was empty this morning, even though the candle was still burning, even though her socks were neatly folded by the bed. Breathing has become a conscious task. Each inhale feels thick, like drawing air through wet cloth. You have to think about it now. Deep breath in, slow breath out. Your chest rattles sometimes, especially in the mornings, like someone stuffed it with soot and crumpled paper. You sit upright to sleep these days. Lying down makes it worse. There's a cough forming at the base of your throat that won't quite arrive. It just hovers there, itchy, threatening, waiting. When you speak, your voice sounds different. Rough, frayed, like it's been smoked over a fire for too long. You tell yourself it's nothing, just a bad stretch. But you've seen others with this same pattern: the hoarse whispers, the hacking coughs, the red eyes and raw throats. Most of them don't talk much anymore. They just wheeze. Today the ash falls heavier than usual. Not flakes this time, dust. Finely ground light as flour, but darker. You watch it swirl through a shaft of window light, soft and slow, like it's trying not to disturb you. You open your door, and the world is thicker. The air smells like burnt leather and eggs. Sulphur. A sour tang that clings to your nose long after you step back inside. You soak a strip of linen and tie it around your mouth. Everyone's doing that now. The lucky ones have herbs tucked inside mint if they've found it. Time. Sage. You settle for damp wool and faint hope. At the well, someone has collapsed. You recognize him, Halv the Weaver's son. His face is grey. Not metaphorically, actually grey. You touch his shoulder. He jerks but doesn't wake. Just wheezes softly in and out. No one helps. They all stand at a distance, watching afraid. A monk mutters, "It's in the lungs now." You ask, "What is?" He doesn't answer. Experts now believe that in the aftermath of 536 volcanic ash and fine particulate matter caused widespread respiratory problems. Some describe it as the year of lung fever. Others believe it may have accelerated the spread of airborne diseases. The science is incomplete, but the coughing was real. You help Halv back to his hut. He doesn't thank you. He barely notices. You lay him down, tuck a rolled cloth behind his neck, and dampen his lips with water. They're cracked, like old bark. Back home, you sit by your fire pit and try to breathe slowly. The cough arrives at sunset. Sharp, sudden, like a fist from inside. You double over, spit something into your palm. It's grey. Not phlegm, not blood. Ash. Your breath smells like the road. You don't tell anyone. That night, your dreams are heavy. You walk through a city with no roofs, just chimneys, hundreds of them spewing black smoke that drifts sideways through narrow alleys. You look down and realize you're walking barefoot on soot. Your skin leaves no prints, A man offers you tea. You ask what's in it. He says smoke and memory. You drink anyway. When you wake, your pillow is damp with sweat and your mouth tastes like stone. You cough again. The sound echoes in the silence like a warning bell. You press your fingers to your ribs and feel the soreness setting in. The dog hasn't come back. The air hasn't cleared. You whisper to yourself, in, out, until your lungs remember what to do, until the grey inside you stops rising. You light the fire again even though it doesn't help. The flame is real, tiny, flickering, obedient. You nurse it with splinters and twigs, watching the glow stretch its fingers toward your face. But it gives off no warmth, not enough to chase the cold from your toes or soothe your aching chest. You sit beside it anyway because it's a comfort, or a symbol, or maybe just something to look at that isn't grey. The smoke curls upward and vanishes through the roof slats. You inhale deeply, half expecting it to help with the cough. It doesn't. Your throat tightens. You double over, hacking until your vision swims. The rag you press to your mouth comes away streaked with something dark. You wipe it on your tunic. One more stain. One less secret. Outside, the frost has crept back, though it's nearly summer. Or should be. The ground crunches beneath your boots as you make your way through the village. You notice others huddled near pathetic fires, little islands of orange in an ocean of grey. Gerwin sits behind a wooden crate with a broken handle, warming his hands over a candle stub. It's not the cold, he rasps. It's that the warmth doesn't stick. You nod. You've felt it too. A kind of invisible ceiling on comfort. You sit near the fire, feel the heat briefly on your knees, and then it's gone. Slipped away like steam from a broken kettle. You both stare at the embers. You ever wonder, he says, if we froze to death already and just haven't noticed? You smile, but it doesn't last. You remember how fires used to feel, how you'd stretch your legs close and pull the heat up into your belly, how the smell of smoke meant stew and stories and staying alive. Now it just means the woodpile is shrinking. Later you pass the chapel and see Father Aldrich holding a sermon to no one. His arms rise, his voice rises, but the pews are empty. The villagers are too tired, too sick, too cold to care about salvation. Or maybe they found it elsewhere. Scholars have long studied the cultural shifts during extreme climate disasters. Some communities turned inward, deepening their faith, doubling down on rituals. Others abandoned temples entirely. Experts still debate which path brings more comfort, belief in divine punishment or belief in nothing at all. You peek inside. The fire in the chapel hearth dances high and bright. But even from the threshold, you can tell it's not warming the room. You think of the stories told in winters past, of hearth spirits, of fire that heals, of warmth as a kind of magic. You wonder if the magic is broken or just gone. That night, you collect what scraps you can, bark twine, a chipped wooden spoon, and light your own fire again. You press your hands close, closer, closer still, and then you feel it a flicker. Not heat, not really, but resistance. Your fingers twitch. You pull back. A blister bubbles where your palm touched the flame too long, so it can burn you, just not warm you. You sit for a long time, nursing your hand, eyes glassy. The flame dances in the dark, bright and cold, and you whisper, "You're not fooling anyone. The king has declared it, the end is near. Not your king, not a king really, just a man who once swept the monastery steps and now wears a brass pot on his head like a crown." He stands in the square, every morning, shouting at the ash-coloured sky, declaring decrees no one asked for. Today's edict: the sun is dead. All subjects must mourn with silence and boiled weeds. Someone tosses him a bark biscuit. He bows deeply and eats it. No one stops him because, frankly, he's not wrong. About the sun being dead, about the mourning, even the boiled weeds. You watch from a distance, arms folded, the cold, gnawing through your cloak. He might be crazy, but at least he sounds certain. Certainty is rare now. Most of the monks have stopped preaching. Even Father Aldrich, who used to recite scripture loud enough to rattle windows, now speaks in half phrases. You overheard him yesterday muttering to himself, and lo, the light departed. No one corrected him, because it has. Experts today trace these spiritual collapses to the emotional toll of the prolonged volcanic winter. Some believe organized religion faltered in the wake of natural trauma, too many unanswered prayers, too many miracles withheld. Others argue that it only deepened, warped into new rituals, doomsday cults, or personal prophecy. In your village, it's a mix of both. Take Miri, for example. She's been carrying a ladder through the village every day, barefoot, muttering, "We must climb above the clouds." No one asks where she's going. They just step aside and let her pass. Then there's old Ran, who built a shrine from goat bones and carrots. He lights it with fish oil and sings lullabies to a mouldy apple core. You asked once what he worships. He said entropy. You nodded. You didn't know what that meant. You still don't. But it felt right. The village is unraveling slowly, quietly. Not with fire and screams, just a soft letting go of old rules, old roles, old meanings. You find Elska sitting by her hut sewing a tunic from pieces of sack and curtain. Did you hear about the king, you ask? She nods. He knighted a loaf of moss bread yesterday. You sit beside her and watch her work. Her stitches are crooked. Her hands shake. But she's making something. That counts. Later you walk past the chapel again. A new sign hangs outside, scrawled in charcoal, sunless, but still sacred. Inside the pews are gone. Burned, probably. The altar is bare. Just a bowl of water and a scrap of wool. A symbol of something. Maybe a baptism. Maybe a washing. Maybe just proof that water and cloth still exist. You don't go in. You stand in the doorway and watch as two children light a wax lump and place it on the stone floor. They whisper something. A prayer. A wish. A dare. You remember what it felt like to believe in something larger than this. Now everything feels small, shrunken, even time. You still mark days in your own way. You scratch lines into your wall. One for every morning the sky stays grey. You're not sure what you'll do when you run out of space. Probably just start over. That night, the king's voice echoes through the square again. Tomorrow, he says we shall bury the shadow. No one asks what that means. You lie in bed thinking of ladders, bone shrines, and mouldy apples. And for the first time you wonder if madness isn't a breakdown but an adaptation. Maybe the world changed and these people just changed faster. Maybe the king's not mad. Maybe he's just ahead of you. The baby doesn't cry. That's the first thing you notice when you step into Elska's hut. The second is the silence. The heavy, dense kind that fills every space with meaning. The third is Elska herself, sitting upright, wrapped in her thin patchwork cloak arms, cradling a bundle, so still it almost doesn't seem real. You stop in the doorway. She looks up, eyes red but dry. She came early, she says. Too early. You move closer. The baby's face is small, pale features barely formed. You can't tell if she's asleep or... No. She's not asleep. You kneel beside her. Say nothing. The fire in Elska's hearth is long dead. The room is cold. There's no warmth left anywhere. Not in her eyes, not in the air, not in the baby. She hands you the bundle, her arms trembling. You hesitate, then take it. The child's skin is cold and thin like rice paper. You whisper something, a prayer, a name. You're not sure. Elska speaks again. I didn't have enough to eat. She didn't have a chance. You nod. No one does anymore. Later you help her dig a small hole behind the chapel, just deep enough. You wrap the baby in soft rags and place her inside. Elska doesn't speak. She just places a pine cone beside her. I wanted to give her a doll, she says, but this was round. You cover the grave in silence. In times like this, people stop asking why. There's no room for why, only when, and sometimes how long. Historical records from the post-536 years mention a disturbing drop in recorded births. Some villages note entire seasons without a single cry. Experts believe famine conditions, disease, and constant cold led to stillbirths and infant death at levels we still struggle to quantify. Some midwives stopped recording them altogether. As you walk back, you notice something strange. A line of footprints in the ash, small, bare, staggered. They lead from the chapel path into the woods. You follow them for a few steps before they vanish. The wind covers tracks fast now. Even the earth doesn't want to remember. Back in the village you pass the king, who's now drawing symbols in the dirt with a spoon. He glances up and says, "Some stars are born invisible. That's the worst kind." You nod. At your hut you light a candle. Just one. Just for the baby. You place it on the windowsill, let the flame shiver in the wind. Elska doesn't come out for 2 days. When she does, she walks to the chapel, kneels, and places something at the base of the door, a small piece of bark carved with 3 lines. You don't ask what it means, you just sit beside her. That night, the wind howls for the first time in weeks. You listen, hoping foolishly for a cry to rise with it. But the night stays still. So does the world. You've never been so happy to see a goat. She appears like a miracle, scraggly damp ribs showing but upright just outside the northern path. You blink several times, sure she's a hallucination. She stares back, chewing something indecipherable, tail flicking. Real. You inch closer, arms out, voice soft. Hey there, girl. She doesn't run. You crouch slowly, holding your breath, and loop a rope around her neck. She follows with surprising ease, hooves clicking on the cold dirt path like a blessing. You lead her to your hut, like a procession of 2. Inside, the warmth of her body alone makes the air feel different. You tie her gently to a post and pile straw beneath her legs. You're not sure if she'll survive, but she's here. That's enough. Gerwin arrives an hour later, drawn by the sound of bleating. He stares, then grins wide. That's Merrick's goat. You freeze. Merrick's dead. Gerwin nods. So the goat's yours. You both laugh. An actual laugh. It cracks the dust in your throat. The goat blinks unimpressed. You name her Brisa. She's not affectionate, but she stays. That night, you try to milk her. She kicks. You try again. A few warm drops hit the bottom of a clay cup. You smell it. Sweet. Rich. Like life. You weep. The next day, you boil it with pine needles for Elska. She drinks slowly, cupping the bowl like it's made of gold. She's beautiful, Elska says, nodding toward Brisa. You agree. You've seen people die every day for weeks, but now for the first time you see someone live. It's strange how much hope fits in a goat. A few villagers gather at your hut just to look at her. One brings an apple peel. Another offers dried grass. You start a barter list: milk for bark, warmth for nettles, presents for presents. Someone even draws her on a bit of cloth. A crude image, but it spreads. Children whisper her name like a charm. Brisa. Brisa. She came from the fog. She'll bring the sun. You let the myth grow. Why not people need gods? Let yours have hooves. Historians often underestimate the symbolic role animals played during crises. Goats in particular appear in folklore as providers, survivors, even saints. Some records from post 536 note that villages worshipped lone animals as omens or lifelines. Experts still debate whether this was belief or necessity. You feed Brisa twice a day, gently, carefully. She eats whatever you give her and occasionally headbutts the wall. That evening she curls beside your fire pit, and for once the flame feels warm. You wake in the night and listen. No coughing, no wind, no scratching, just breathing. Yours, hers, together. The coin feels heavy in your hand. You turn it over, run your thumb across its ridged edge. The king's face is still visible, worn smooth but staring skyward with hollow pride. Once this little disc could have bought you bread salt, a pint of something warm. Now, it can't even buy hope. You step into the square where a few people mill about, hunched against the wind. A boy has a bundle of dried nettles. You approach, hold out the coin. His eyes flick down. He doesn't move. No trades, he says, voice flat. Only food for food. You nod. Pocket the coin. Walk on. Everywhere you go, the same answer coins are useless. Buttons have more value. String, old boots, goat droppings, even Elska's been collecting them for fire starters. But money. Money is a joke no one tells anymore. You think of the merchant who passed through last month, covered in grime, pulling a cart full of gold rings and copper kettles. No one stopped him. He offered a golden brooch for a half turnip. The woman selling the turnip didn't even answer, just walked away. He left in silence, the brooch still hanging from his finger like a curse. Experts have long debated how the economy fared in the aftermath of 536. Trade routes collapsed. Markets disappeared. Barter returned with brutal simplicity. Coins rusted in pockets while people starved in sight of silver. You sit on the chapel steps and watch a group huddled around a boiling pot. Someone stirs it with a stick. You can't smell anything from here, which is worrying. You approach, peer inside. Water. A stone. Some sort of herb. Stone soup, someone says, smiling. You're not sure if it's a joke or not. You offer the coin. They laugh. One woman actually claps. We don't eat kings anymore, she says. You walk away. Later you visit Elska. She's patching a hole in her shoe with goat leather. Brisa watches from the corner, blinking slowly. You drop the coin on the table. Elska eyes it. You trying to curse me? Just thought you might want to melt it. She picks it up, weighs it. Number. Too soft. Useless. You nod. Want soup? She asks. You glance at the pot. Depends what the stone's made of. You share a weak laugh. Even that feels like treasure. That night you lie awake and think about all the things you once wanted. A better bed. A sharper knife. A heavier coin purse. Now you want soup that tastes like something. A fire that lasts the night. A sun that doesn't lie. You hold the coin up to the candlelight. Watch the way it doesn't shine. Then you toss it into the ashes. And don't look back. It's snowing. That would be fine if it weren't June. You step outside and tilt your face to the sky. The flakes are small, dry, and angry. They don't dance like winter snow. They fall straight down fast and bitter, like they're in a hurry to bury something. You open your mouth and catch one. It tastes like ash. Of course it does. You wrap your cloak tighter and head toward the chapel. Along the way, you pass a bundle on the road. It looks like cloth until it shifts slightly. You pause. It's a goat, not Brisa. A different one, half-buried, frozen solid. You crouch, touch its side. Cold. You whisper something. Not a prayer. Not quite. But it disappears in the wind. At the chapel, Elska's waiting. Snow, she says flatly. You nod. Again. You both step inside, stomping off the powder. It leaves dark footprints on the stone. The air smells like damp stone and old fire. Brisa's there too, tied near the corner. She watches you both like she understands everything. You settle on the floor near the hearth. Someone started a fire, but it's weak, half-hearted, like even flames are tired of this. There's talk in the village of strange weather further south. Hailstorms in August, frost in July. Some say lightning split a church steeple. Others say birds fell from the sky, mid-flight, frozen solid. You believe it. Scholars now suspect that a series of volcanic eruptions triggered sudden and extreme shifts in atmospheric conditions during the mid-6th century. Snow in summer, crops dying in the ground. Entire regions plunged into confusion and starvation. They call it climate disruption. You call it Tuesday. Someone rushes in. Fire, they shout. You bolt upright. But it's not the village, it's the ridge. You follow the others outside, feet crunching snow ash. The wind bites hard. In the distance, a tree is burning. One lone pine flames licking upward like a scream. The snow falls harder now, thick, dry, and it's landing on the fire. But the fire doesn't die. It climbs. You watch in silence as the tree crackles, sways, and finally collapses with a wet hiss. Behind you, someone whispers. The sky is punishing the earth. You don't answer. You return to your hut, shaking off the snow. You huddle near your own fire, tiny, flickering, stubborn, and pull the blanket up to your chin. Brisa presses close. You think about what season it is. You think about how it doesn't matter anymore. Then you sleep, and dream of tulips pushing through snow. Only when you reach down to pick one, it crumbles in your hand like ash. You find the priest lying on his back, staring at the sky. Not Father Aldrich, he vanished days ago without a word. This is Brother Elric, the youngest of the monks, the one who used to collect beetles and hum to himself as he swept the chapel floor. Now he's sprawled on the frostbitten grass behind the chapel, arms stretched wide, lips moving silently. You crouch beside him. Are you all right? He blinks once, twice, then whispers. The stars are angry. You glance upward, though there's nothing to see. The sky is still its usual featureless smear. Grey, woolen blank. There are no stars, Elric. He shakes his head slowly. You're just not looking hard enough. You sit next to him, knees to your chest, trying not to breathe too deeply. The air still tastes faintly of sulphur and wood smoke. He gestures toward the horizon. It's the alignment, he says. They're all crossing paths. That's what this is. You frown. What, he grins, teeth pale and cracked. Mars, Saturn, Jupiter. They've turned against us. You nod, not because you agree, but because you've run out of ways to say, I don't know. In the village, talk of omens has spread like frost on glass. The monks claim the heavens are to blame comets, eclipses, stars misbehaving. Astrology, once the domain of kings and madmen, is suddenly everyone's favorite science. Did you hear Gerwin said yesterday? Eyes wide. A glowing tail was seen over the eastern hills. Someone else swore the moon had vanished. Another claimed it was bleeding. Even Elska, the most grounded of them all, murmured, "Something up there started this. Not down here." Historians today believe that strange celestial events around 536, a dimmed sun, a possible comet sighting may have deepened the sense of dread, gripping the ancient world. In a time before science could explain stratospheric dust or atmospheric haze, people looked up and saw judgment. You look up too, still grey, still empty, but you understand the urge. You want to blame something bigger, something that can't be buried or bartered with. Back at your hut, you find a bundle of nettles tied to your door. A gift. You suspect it's from Elska. You soak them in warm water and drink the bitter broth, imagining it's tea. You cough halfway through, and the pain in your chest reminds you that the stars might not be angry. Maybe they're just gone. That night you dream of a sky filled with unfamiliar constellations, twisting, pulsing shapes like knots of burning thread. You stare upward until your neck aches. The stars form letters, a message. You try to read it, but it's in a language you've never seen. You wake with your blanket tangled around your legs and frost creeping across the inside of your window pane. You reach for a scrap of charcoal and draw circles on the wall. Tiny ones, one for each imagined star. You name them as you go. Not for gods, not for kings, just for something to remember you by. Your cousin shows up with no eyebrows and a pocket full of moss. You recognize him instantly, even though his face is gaunt and pale. Even though he's wrapped in mismatched cloaks tied with string and straw. He smiles like nothing's wrong, like it's just a regular family visit. "Hello, little one," he says, using the nickname you hated as a child. You stare. Jonas. "In the flesh," he says, raising his arms, as if to display himself like a proud exhibit. "Well, most of it." He looks thinner than you remember. Bone thin. Lips cracked, hands trembling. But his eyes are alive, too alive, bright and buzzing, as if a fire's caught behind them and can't get out. You invite him in. He ducks through the door, sniffs once, then says, "Still burning pine. That's old energy. You need to upgrade." You blink. Upgrade. He pulls out the moss. "We eat this now," he says. "It knows things." You sit very still. Jonas, last you heard, had gone south to trade cloth and spices. A wanderer. Clever, talked too fast, drank too much, but he never struck you as the kind to shave his eyebrows and declare moss divine. You glance at his belt. There are charms tied there, bundles of hair, animal teeth, what might be a doll's hand. He catches you staring. "Protection," he says, tapping one of them. "The world's thin now. Things slip through." You nod slowly. "What things?" He leans forward, conspiratorial. "The ones that whisper. They live under the frost. Moss hears them best." You offer him bark bread. He declines. "I'm fasting." Listening season, you see. Cleans the mind. You don't push. Just let him talk. He tells you about a place 3 days east, where people gather around a dead tree and hum in unison. Where no one sleeps, but no one tires. Where food is optional, and names are exchanged for symbols. He draws one in the ash on your floor, an eye surrounded by teeth. You wipe it away. "Not in here," you whisper. He nods. Outside, Brissa bleats softly. Jonas stiffens. "She knows," he says. "Goats remember the before time." You lead him out. He pauses at the door. "You should come," he says. "You're cracking. I can see it. I'm fine." "No one's fine," he says. "But some of us are ready." Then he's gone. Later, Elska visits. You tell her about Jonas. She sighs. "Another one. Another you." Raise your brows. She explains a girl lit candles in a spiral and slept in the center. A man walked backward for a day, then vanished into the woods. A family stopped speaking entirely, only tapping on walls to communicate. "They're forming groups," she says. "Faiths. New ones." You don't ask if it's madness or belief. Maybe both. Experts still argue whether post-disaster cult activity was born from spiritual desperation or neurological strain. The lack of sunlight, malnutrition, and constant stress can fracture the mind, blur lines between ritual and psychosis. But in those moments to the people living it, it probably didn't feel broken. It felt like structure. That night you sit beside the fire and pull your blanket tight. You draw a symbol in the ash, not the eye, something else. A star with a crooked line. You stare at it, then wipe it away. Because you're not ready. Not yet. The dog comes back alone. You're sitting outside your hut, chewing a piece of pine bark that's gone stale and bitter, when you hear the soft pat of paws. You glance up, and there he is. Same mangy fur, same waxy whiskers. But this time, no owner. No friendly bark, no wag of the tail. He stands in the road covered in frost, an ash muzzle streaked with something that isn't mud. He watches you. You stand slowly. He lowers his head. You crouch, arm outstretched. Come on, boy. He doesn't move. You try again, softer. It's all right. But it isn't. Because as he steps forward, you see it. Stuck in his fur, bits of cloth, and something that used to be a bootlace. You swallow hard. You've seen that lace before. You know who wore it. Miri, the ladder girl. The one who believed she could climb above the clouds. You step back. The dog trots past you, calm as a ghost tail, swaying like nothing happened. He circles the fire pit and lies down. He begins to clean his paws. You go inside, and you lock the door. Later you sit beside Elska, and you ask her quietly, "Do you think it ate her?" She doesn't look surprised. "I think she gave herself to it," she replies, "like an offering." You blink. She said the sky was thinning. Elska continues, that something was watching through the gaps. Maybe she wanted to go first. The next morning the dog is still there. Someone throws him a piece of bark bread. He ignores it. Someone else tries to pet him. He growls. The village begins to talk. "He's a guide," someone whispers. To the other side. No, says another. "He's a judge. He chooses who stays." The king bows to him on the third day, brings him a crown of twigs. The dog chews it to pulp. By the fifth day, a child draws his image in the ash outside the chapel. Adds a halo. People stop, stare. Don't erase it. You try not to look at him when you pass. But you do. He's always watching. Experts have long noted the rise of animal symbolism during prolonged crises. In times of collapse, pets become omens. Good or bad. Black dogs, bleeding lambs, silent birds. It's less about logic, more about meaning. Humans crave a sign. That night the dog curls near your door. You don't sleep. When you finally close your eyes, you dream of a trail of footprints in the snow. Human at first, then paw prints, then nothing at all. You wake up, heart pounding, throat dry. The dog is gone, but in his place someone has left a bundle of moss, tied with a bootlace. You trade a poem for turnips. It's not your best work. Just a short verse you carved into bark last winter, back when the cold was still novel, and you thought it might pass. You kept it for yourself, a charm, a joke, maybe a reminder that you used to be someone who could make words sing. Now it's currency. You hand it to a trader from the ridge, a grizzled man with one ear and two teeth, and he squints at it, turns it over, nods. 5 slices, he grunts. You don't argue. The turnips are small, wrinkled, and vaguely pink. But they're food. Real food. Solid. You take them back to your hut like treasure. You boil one and split it with Elska. She eats in silence, eyes closed. "This tastes like memory," she says. You nod. Later she asks about the poem. You recite it from memory. "The sky forgot our names today, so I wrote mine in the ash." She stares at you. "That's beautiful," she says softly. You smile, then shake your head. "It's survival." She shrugs. Same thing now. Out in the square, people have started trading stories. Not just goods, not just food, but moments. A song in exchange for mittens. A drawing for a dried mushroom. One girl recites a fairy tale and receives a warm scarf. An old man hums a melody no one's heard in years. He walks away with a boiled egg. The chapel has a wall now carved, with riddles, sketches, names. A barter board made of bark. You add to it, "I'll trade silence for a story." Any ending will do. Scholars still debate the function of culture during prolonged catastrophes. Some say it decays, others argue it adapts. There are theories about survival through symbolism, how language, music, and art become stand-ins for hope when nothing else will suffice. You believe it now. One boy hands you a bundle of dried leaves in exchange for a riddle. What has teeth but doesn't bite, he asks wide-eyed. You grin. A comb. He grins back. You win, and gives you the leaves. You boil them that night and sip slowly. They taste like paper and warmth. You take out another scrap of bark and begin to write again. Something about stars. Something about forgetting. Something about turnips. Later you find a note under a stone near your door. It reads, "Thank you for the poem. I traded it for gloves." You laugh. A dry, cracked laugh that feels like a gift. That night, you dream of a feast where everyone speaks in rhyme, where food appears for every joke, and laughter echoes like thunder. When you wake, the sky is still grey, but you hum a line from your poem as you chew your breakfast, and somehow it makes the turnips sweeter. You hadn't noticed the owls were gone. It's strange how silence doesn't announce itself. It sneaks in, slowly. It replaces sound with memory. You think you heard a thing yesterday, only to realize it's been weeks. You're walking the outer path of the village past the old watchpost when it hits you. There are no hoots, no flapping, no rustling in the branches overhead. Just the cold hush of ash shifting beneath your boots. You stop, tilt your head. Nothing. Once the owls kept watch. Their cries marked midnight. Their wings swept across fields like shadows of wisdom. Now, they're missing. You hadn't even thought to miss them. You wander to the tree line and sit beneath the largest pine. You wait. Still nothing. Even the wind has grown shy. Later you ask Elska if she's heard any birds. She shakes her head. Not in a while. What happened to them? She shrugs. Maybe they stopped needing us. You both sit in her hut sipping broth that tastes of old mushrooms and desperation. Bryza chews straw nearby, occasionally pausing to look at the door as if expecting something. She listens better than we do, Elska says, watching the goat. She heard the silence before we did. You nod. There's a theory someone once muttered near the chapel fire that the animals were the first to sense it. Not the cold, not the hunger, but the ending. And so they left. The birds, the owls, the wolves, the crickets, gone like breath in frost. Historians call it the acoustic collapse. No birdsong recorded in certain regions for months. No buzzing. No croaking. A whole layer of the world's music erased. Some experts believe the food chain collapsed from the top and bottom at once. Others think the sunless sky confused the natural clocks. You walk the fields that evening. The sky is the same blank, low, unmoving. You whistle once. It's loud. Too loud. It feels rude. You try again, softer. No reply. You sit on a stump and wait. A leaf falls beside you. For a moment you pretend it's a feather. The next morning a child taps on your door. There's a bird, he says. You follow him eagerly, heart thudding. It's not an owl. Just a small brown thing, ruffled skinny, blinking in confusion on the chapel roof. It hops, looks around, then it takes off. Everyone watches. It flaps clumsily into the air, then disappears into the haze. No sound, no cry, just the miracle of motion. Someone claps, someone else cries. Later, someone carves a new sign above the chapel door. We are still listening. That night you dream of owls perched on every rooftop, blinking, slowly whispering riddles. One leans close to your ear and says, "We came back because you remembered." You wake with tears on your cheeks, and a single feather tucked beneath your blanket. You're not alone by the fire. You're sure of it, though no one else is speaking, and the flame makes no noise, and Brisa is asleep, curled up with her nose tucked beneath her belly. Still, something sits with you. You stare into the fire and don't blink, and that's when it happens. The shape appears not from the flame, but in it. A figure, not fully formed, more like the suggestion of someone. A posture, a shoulder, a hand too still to be real. It flickers once, twice, then steps forward. You don't move. The warmth disappears. The fire still burns, but the heat vanishes like breath from a mirror. Then, nothing. The figure is gone. You breathe again. You look at Brisa. She's still sleeping. You don't mention it to Elska the next morning. Not at first, but when she sees your face, she doesn't ask what happened. She just says, You saw it too then. You sit in silence for a while, sipping broth until she continues. Mine had no face, just a glow where its eyes should have been. You ask, "What did it do Saturday?" She says, "Watched, didn't blink." You nod. Later by the chapel, you overhear someone else talking. It wasn't smoke, it was a person, in the corner, watching the fire with us. Didn't say a word. You keep your distance, but your ears stay open. The stories vary. Some say the figures whisper, some say they weep, some say they vanish the moment you look directly at them. You think of all the fire pits in all the huts, all the lonely souls warming their hands beside fading flames, all the people hoping not to die tonight, but maybe tomorrow. It makes sense, doesn't it? That something would come sit beside you, something quiet, something tired, something that wants the same thing you do to remember what warmth felt like. Historians don't talk much about hallucinations. It's not easy to document ghosts, but some old letters scraps really describe firelight that bends strangely, or companions made of flame, or old friends returned from the ash. Scholars remain divided on whether these were dream accounts, trauma responses, or something else entirely. You poke the coals, watch the sparks lift and swirl. You ask without words, "Are you still there?" And when a new ember flares a little too bright just for a moment, you think, "Yes." That night you invite it to stay. Not out loud, just by leaving a spot open beside the fire, just by sitting a little farther to the side, just by not blinking too. It begins with a hum, soft, almost accidental, a thread of sound drifting through the chapel like smoke, barely there so light it might be a breeze. You freeze spoon halfway to your mouth, straining to hear. Another note follows. Then a third, a melody. You glance around. Elska's eyes are wide. Jerwin drops his spoon. Even Brisa lifts her head. No one's heard a song in weeks. You rise slowly, following the sound. It leads you to the corner of the chapel, where a girl, young, maybe 15, is sitting, with her eyes closed, humming. Her lips never move. The song is strange, familiar but warped. It spirals upward, then drifts downward like a leaf. There are no words, just feeling. Grief wrapped in lullaby, the kind of tune you'd hear once and carry forever. When it stops, the silence crashes in like a wave. People exhale. Some cry. She opens her eyes. "I don't remember where I heard it," she says softly. "It was in my mouth when I woke up." You nod. You believe her. The next day, someone whistles the same tune in the square. A day after that, a boy taps its rhythm on a barrel. Within a week, the entire village has caught it. They call it the last song. No one claims to have made it, but everyone feels it belongs to them. It weaves into everything. You hear it hummed while people stir bark soup, sung in fragments during grave digging, whispered beside sick beds. A comfort, a tether. Even the king adds verses rhyming nonsense about sun gods and goats. No one corrects him. One night, Elska tells you she heard her mother's voice in the song. "I forgot her face," she says, "but the tune brought it back." You understand. You think you hear your father's laugh in the second refrain. The third verse feels like warmth. The fourth tastes like old bread. Experts today would label this a folk anomaly, a mimetic melody, a psychological echo born from communal grief. But in 536, you just know it as the thing that stops the cold from getting all the way inside. You begin to sing it while working, while walking, while watching the sky refuse to change. And one night, when you hum it near the fire, a second voice joins you. Not Elska's, not Gerwin's, something older, something weightless. You don't open your eyes, you just keep singing. And for the first time in months, you sleep through the night. The letter arrives folded in bark. You find it on your doorstep at dawn, if this thick grey sky still knows how to count dawns. A flat square tied with twine, sealed with a glob of ash. No name, no scent, just presence. You hesitate. Messages are rare now. Most people don't write anymore. What's the point when no one delivers? You sit cross-legged by the fire pit, fingers cold, and untie the twine. Inside, thin lines barely scratched into the surface. It reads, "The clouds will never clear. The sun is buried. But we are not. Not yet." You stare at the words. They look like they were carved with a dull bone or a splintered quill. Some of the letters are reversed. Some fade mid-word. But it's still legible. Just barely. You show Elska. She doesn't speak, just runs her fingers along the grain of the bark. Then she says, "It's not for us." You frown. "Then why send it?" She shrugs. "Because someone needed to." That afternoon more appear. One tucked into the chapel door, one nailed to the fence post, another slipped into a cracked water jug near the well. All different, all anonymous. We are still fire, not just smoke. Remember what light felt like. Tell the trees we tried. Some are poems. Some are lists. One just says, "I'm afraid," over and over until the bark runs out. They begin to call them ash letters. People start trading them, hanging them from rafters, burying them with the dead, reading them aloud at the communal fire, adding their own. Even the king writes one, "Crown me with dusk. I'll rule what's left." It makes people laugh. You write one too. "If this ends, let someone remember our breath." You hang it near the goat pen. Breezer sniffs it, then pees on the post. Poetic. Scholars centuries later find only fragments from this time. Charred wood, bits of script, bark etched with symbols too faint to translate. Some believe these were prayers. Others say they were inventories. But a few historians quietly admit they feel like grief trying not to die alone. At night, the wind scatters a few into the woods. Others you find pressed beneath stones as if held down by intention. You wonder how far one could travel. You wonder who wrote the first. You wonder how many will be lost. Then you write another. This year never ends. But neither do we. You tuck it under your blanket before you sleep and dream of pages unfolding in the sky. There's a finger in the flower. You don't see it at first. You're too busy marveling at the fact there's flour at all, a half-sack left at the edge of the chapel kitchen. No note, no name, just white powder in a stained cloth bag. You untie it carefully, half suspecting a trick. The scent hits you sour, sharp, slightly wet. Not fresh, but usable. You dip your hand in, and you feel it. Small, cold, knuckled. You freeze. Then slowly you pull it out. A finger, human, pale, with the nail still intact, jagged at the joint as if torn, not cut. You drop it. You stare. Then you rewrap the flower. You say nothing. Later, you tell Elska, quietly. At first, she doesn't react. Then she says, "Did you keep it?" You blink. "What?" She shrugs. "It's protein." You gag. She doesn't laugh. You bury the finger behind your hut, under a cairn of stones. You whisper something, maybe an apology, maybe just a question. Why? In the days that follow, whispers return. Someone else finds teeth in the bark bin. A child discovers an earring embedded in a broth cube. No one claims responsibility. The village splits. Some say it's a warning to be careful, to look before you eat, that the famine has driven someone to madness. Others believe it's a blessing, that the dead are helping us survive, that their pieces feed us still. One woman insists the flower was holy, that the finger belonged to a saint. She eats her share with closed eyes and grateful silence. You can't decide what terrifies you more, the possibility that she's wrong or that she's right. Anthropologists have found evidence of survival cannibalism across centuries and continents. Bones bearing scrape marks, cooked marrow, human protein found in ancient latrines. Some cultures feared it, others embraced it, some simply endured it. You thought it would be obvious when the line was crossed, that there'd be horror, shame, torches, screams. But when you watch people boil soup now, you see no fear, just hunger. That night you find another sack, smaller, inside dried meat, pale, odorless. You toss it into the fire without opening it. The flames hiss. Breezer watches you with unblinking eyes. You say a loud number, not to anyone, just to something, just to remind yourself. You don't sleep well. No one speaks today. It begins by accident. You wake, stretch, and step outside and hear nothing. Not the scraping of pots, not Breezer's bleat, not even the king's usual morning rant. Just wind. You walk to the square. People are there. Dozens. Moving slowly. Trading. Eating. Sitting. All in silence. You open your mouth to greet Elska, then stop. She holds a finger to her lips. You nod. And the day unfolds wordlessly. It's not unpleasant. In fact, it's peaceful. You notice more. The sound of boots in the ash. The way people gesture with their chins or tilt their heads. the creak of wagon wheels, a muffled cough, a child dragging a stick in a spiral across the ground. Everything is slower, gentler, intentional. You help Gerwin lift a pot onto the fire. He grunts, you grunt. He pats your back once. No words needed. Elska offers you a bowl of broth. You tap her wrist twice in thanks. Brisa headbutts your knee when you take too long to feed her. You bow slightly in apology. There's no reason for this vow of silence. No declaration. No superstition. It just happens and holds. By midday, someone begins stacking rocks in a pattern by the chapel, tall to short, then tall again. No one asks why. No one interrupts. They just watch. Someone else draws symbols in the ash circles inside triangles, a goat's eye, a sun with no rays. No one stops them. Silence makes space. Later, a boy trips and drops his bundle of bark. Several people rush to help. Still, not a word. He signs something with his hands. You don't know what it means, but it's beautiful. Historians rarely record silence. Their sources are letters, speeches, law codes. But oral traditions speak of still days when grief or fear settled so thick that language felt too sharp. When a hush fell not out of rule but out of recognition. You understand that now. Near sunset, the air changes. Warmer, maybe. Or maybe you're just imagining it. The wind rustles the flags strung between huts, and for a moment you hear something that sounds like music. But it's not. It's just quiet, echoing off stone. You return to your hut, light a candle, sit with Brisa. You hum a bit, but stop halfway through. Even music feels too loud. You write in the ash near your fire. Sometimes the world needs a moment to breathe. Then you blow out the flame and listen to the darkness. And it listens back. The river is moving the wrong way. You're the first to notice. You walk the edge of it every morning now, partly out of habit, partly because it's the only thing that still flows. But today, something's off. The current is reversed. At first you think it's the wind. But there is no wind. The surface is glass, still except for the gentle crawl of water. Heading uphill, you crouch, drop a twig in. It drifts upstream, slowly, defiantly. You touch the water, warm. Your breath catches. The river hasn't been warm since what? Before the ash, before the sky turned traitor. You dip your hand in, then your wrist. It's not hot, just not freezing, almost comforting. You run to find Elska. She comes skeptical, stands beside you in the grey mist. When she sees it, she exhales through her nose. That's not right. You both watch it a long time. You ask, what does it mean? She answers without looking at you. Maybe time gave up. By midday, the whole village knows. People gather silently by the bank. No one touches it again. They just watch, waiting, hoping it's a sign or a warning. Some say it's a miracle, others a trick. The king proclaims, the river has remembered the beginning. No one corrects him. Later, someone sends a bowl down the current. It returns, full of leaves. You don't know whose idea it was, but a ritual forms fast. Offer something. Send it upstream. See what comes back. You try it. You place a bit of bark bread in a bowl. Watch it drift away. It comes back with a pebble, warm to the touch. Brisa sniffs it and sneezes. That night the chanting begins. A few villagers sing softly by the water's edge. Others hum. You stay back watching. The current is faster now. Still reversed. Still deliberate. It doesn't churn, doesn't gurgle, just glides. Experts today are baffled by ancient reports of backward-flowing rivers. Theories range from optical illusions to seismic shifts, disrupting underground channels. Some dismiss it entirely. But one monk from the era simply wrote, "The water wept its way home." You sleep near the river that night. You dream of fish swimming backward, of time unraveling like thread, of your own footsteps walking away from you. When you wake, the river has returned to normal. Cold, silent, sensible. But the pebble still holds its heat, and the twig you dropped is missing. The moon bleeds tonight. You see it rising through the fog, swollen dark, the colour of rust and ruin. Not silver, not white. A deep, unnatural red, like it's been hurt. Like it's ashamed to show its face, but too proud to hide. You aren't alone. Others see it too. Elska gasps. Gerwin mutters a prayer. The king falls to his knees and presses his forehead into the mud. Even Breezer is still. The village stands beneath it, every eye turned skyward. And for once there is no speaking, no laughing, no trading, just staring. You whisper. It looks wrong. Elska answers. It looks true. No one knows what to do. A monk appears with a bell and rings it once sharply. A signal, not of joy, not of mourning, just of notice. Like marking attendance for something the sky has summoned. A child cries. Not loud, just enough to remind everyone what fear sounds like. That night fires burn brighter than usual. People gather in clusters. They sit back to back, facing outward, as if bracing for something to come from the edges. No one dares walk alone, and no one turns their back to the sky. There's a tale you once heard before the ash about blood moons bringing change, that if the moon glows red, the world below must bleed in balance. You always thought it was just folklore. Now you're not so sure. Historians in centuries to come will record odd astronomical events in this era. Unusual eclipses, prolonged dimming celestial distortions. Some think it was smoke and volcanic debris scattering light. Others claim collective hallucination. But you don't care what science will someday call it. You know what it feels like. Punishment, confession, a warning. You and Elska don't speak much that night. You sit by your hut, a thin blanket around your shoulders, and watch the sky pulse with crimson. The moon never climbs high, it just hovers, watching. You ask aloud, "What did we do?" No one answers. But the wind picks up. It hisses through the trees like a breath drawn in. At one point, someone starts to sing the last song, softly, off-key. The sound dies after 2 verses. The red deepens. A woman screams, not because of anything happening, just because the pressure finally cracked her open. You close your eyes and try to picture the moon the way it used to be. Pale, polite, distant. But the red burns through your lids. That night, no one dreams, no one sleeps, no one moves. By dawn, if this pale, ugly light can still be called that, the moon is gone. The fog returns. The silence resumes. But something shifted in the night. You can feel it. Breezer won't meet your gaze. And you wonder, did the moon see something in us? Or did it show us something in return? He arrives at dusk barefoot and smiling. You spot him first tall, cloaked, walking down the northern path, as if he's late for dinner, but in no rush to get there. No pack, no weapon. Just the steady rhythm of footstep after footstep, like he's done this 100 times before. You step forward cautious. He stops, nods, and in that moment you smell it, faint but unmistakable sunlight. Not fire, not smoke, not damp wool or fermented bark. No, this is warmth, green things, dust in a sunbeam, the scent of a world that existed before. Your knees nearly buckle. The others gather slowly. The king bows low. Elska stares like she's trying to remember him from a dream. Gerwin circles behind him, once muttering, "He's real. He's not ash." The man speaks. "Do you have a place to sit?" His voice is smooth. Too smooth. Like it's never been used in sorrow. You offer him your stool. He sits by the fire, pulls off his hood. His face is weathered, but unlined. His eyes reflect orange flame. And something else. Something you can't name. You ask, "Where did you come from?" He smiles. "Somewhere warm." He won't say more. You offer him broth. He declines. You offer bark bread. He declines that too. "Already full," he says. You can't stop staring at him. Neither can anyone else. He tells stories. Strange ones. About trees that still blossom. About rivers that boil with laughter. About clouds that cry wine. His words pour like honey, thick, golden, sticky with promise. You want to believe him. Everyone does. But then Breezer approaches. She sniffs his boots. She stiffens. Then backs away. You've never seen her afraid. Elska notices too. She touches your arm. Whispers. Something's wrong. You nod. The man's smile never fades. Even when silence stretches. Even when questions stop. He rises without a word. Walks to the center of the square. Places a small bundle on the ground. No one dares touch it, he says. You'll know when to open it, then turns and walks into the fog. Gone. No goodbye. Just gone. The next morning the bundle is still there, wrapped in silk, tied with bone. Inside a single apple, unbruised, shining. You cut it open. It's full of ash. The king weeps. Elska burns the rest. That night you dream of heat that burns without light, of summer that leaves frost on your tongue. You wake sweating. Brisa is standing, staring at the door. The ash is falling upward. It starts at dawn, or what you think is dawn. The sky, as always, is more bruised than brightness. You step outside with your usual stiff limbs and aching lungs, expecting to crunch through the same dead grey dust. But it's not falling today. It's rising. You freeze. The particles lift from the ground like startled birds. Gentle at first, just a few flecks swirling near your boots, then more. A steady current of grey lifting, spiralling, floating skyward, as if gravity has let go of the world in small, weightless pieces. Elska sees it next. Then Gerwin. Then the children, wide-eyed mouths open. No one speaks. The whole village watches in stunned silence as ash peels itself from rooftops, fences, trees. Trails of it rise like smoke in reverse. From every surface, every wrinkle, every forgotten pile, the ground clears itself, and the air takes it back. Someone whispers, "Is this it?" The king kneels in the square arms, raised, weeping. The cleansing has begun. No one mocks him. Not today. Because for one surreal hour, the village is clean. Not completely, just eerily close. Cobblestones appear. Roots resurface. The path through the woods becomes visible again. Light dim, as ever feels clearer. Less choked, and the silence deeper. Not heavy this time, but pure, like holding your breath after a snowfall. Experts today speculate that static charges from volcanic aerosols, or microbursts of inverted temperature layers, could cause bizarre upward motion in ash-laden atmospheres. But even they struggle to explain the emotional impact. What does it feel like to watch dust lift off your world as if the earth is exhaling? You feel exposed, naked. Like the village's bones are showing. Brisa snorts once, paces nervously, refuses to eat. You walk the square in slow circles, touch a doorframe newly clean. See your own footprints behind you visible for the first time in weeks. Then the wind shifts. The ash freezes mid-air, then begins to fall again. As suddenly as it lifted, it returns. Heavier, thicker, relentless. It covers the footprints. It hides the roots. It buries the brief clarity. Elska closes her eyes and says, "It changed its mind." You nod. Or forgave us too soon. By nightfall, it's as if nothing happened. Except you know better. Because for 1 hour you saw what lived underneath. And now you'll never stop wondering what else waits there. You lose your last tooth after the broth. It wasn't even a hard bite. Just a sip. Just a small chew on boiled root and yesterday's bark. But something shifts click, and your tongue finds the hollow where a molar used to be. You spit it into your hand. It's pale, smooth, still faintly warm. You stare at it for a long time, thumb brushing the base like it might tell you something. It doesn't. You wrap it in cloth. Tuck it under your blanket like a child, expecting a visit from something kind. But nothing comes. You wake with blood in your mouth and the taste of metal lingering behind your gums. When you smile at Elska later, she doesn't smile back. She just says gently, "Now your mouth looks like the year. Toothless. Gnawing. Exposed." She doesn't mean it cruelly, but it lands hard. You remember a time when teeth were tools, weapons, marks of youth and health and strength. Now they're just burdens waiting to leave you. You notice others have changed too. Gerwin hums with a lisp now. A girl at the well speaks in whistles. A child gummed their way through bark, proud of the pulpy mess they made. No one's chewing anymore. They're soaking, steeping, letting the world soften enough not to fight back. Even the goats eat slower. Brisa's breath smells like rot and silence. Scholars have noted that during extended famines, dental decay was rampant. Without fresh food, nutrition vanished. Gums receded. Teeth broke. Smiles faded. In one preserved journal from the Alps, a mother wrote, "We are learning to eat like ghosts. You understand now. That night you hold your last tooth like a relic. You could bury it. You could burn it. Instead, you press it into the ash near your fire, make a small impression and let it sit there. A marker, a grave, a truth. Elska watches from the doorway. She doesn't speak. You don't either. Because what can you say when your body has begun to leave you? The next morning you wake and run your tongue along your gums, smooth, empty. You drink your broth in silence. Let it wash over you like the sky does. Grey, warm, heavy, and absolutely without bite. They say the world forgot the year 536. Not in the sense that no one lived it. Clearly they did. You did. You are. But in the centuries that followed it, slipped away. Vanished between scribes and dynasties. A gap, a smudge, a silence in the timeline. You think about that now, sitting by the fire, holding a piece of bark, etched with nothing in particular, just a spiral you traced, while waiting for the soup to boil. Elska sits beside you, her hands tucked into her sleeves. Brisa sleeps against the wall, breathing slow, each rise and fall of her belly, a kind of metronome. You say quietly, "What if no one remembers?" Elska doesn't ask who, or what. She just shrugs. Then we remember. But will you? The ash has taken more than food and warmth. It's taken language. Names. Smells. Songs. You used to be able to picture spring. Now the colour green feels fictional. The word fruit feels extravagant. You're forgetting how it felt to live in sunlight. And the world in turn seems content to let this whole year slip. Some records remain. Scattered. Vague. A monk's scribble about a sunless sky. A merchant's lament about a year without grain. A Viking saga that mutters about 3 winters chained together. But nothing whole. Nothing that captures what it meant to live in the shadow of a sky that would not speak. Scholars argue, even now was it a volcano? A plague? A curse? Did it happen at all? Could one year really be so bad and yet so lost? You want to shout, to insist. Yes, it was real, it was cold, it was endless. But instead, you press your spiral into the bark a little deeper, blow the ash off gently, pass it to Elska. She holds it like it's something precious. She tucks it inside her cloak. Outside, the grey lifts slightly. Not clear, just less thick. The shape of a distant hill emerges. You had forgotten it was even there. You whisper. See that Elska nods. The world's still here. You both smile. Toothless. Cracked. Weary. But smiling. And somewhere far in the future, a historian rubs their temples and says, "There's a gap here. We don't know what happened. Nothing was written down." And maybe that's true. But you know this. It was ash. It was silence. It was teeth in soup and goats that warned. And strangers who carried sunlight that burned like lies. And in the middle of it all, it was you, breathing, remembering, not quite erased. And now you rest. The fire has faded to a soft glow. The last curl of smoke drifts upward slow and lazy like the sky is finally ready to exhale. Your eyes are heavy. Your hands are still. Around you, the world does not end, it simply pauses. It waits the way old trees wait, the way stones wait, the way dreams wait, when they know they'll be visited again. The ash still falls, but softer now. It coats the roof like a blanket. It hushes the wind. It muffles the distant coughs and footsteps. Everything grows quiet like the world has tucked itself in. Elska's breathing is steady. Brisa's sleep snorts fade into rhythm. Even the stars imagined or not seem closer now. In this moment, there is no hunger, no fear, no memory of loss. There is only you. Warm, still alive. The cold cannot reach you here. Not tonight. So let your body settle. Let your thoughts dissolve, like footprints in snow. Let the dust wrap you in silence. You have done enough. You have endured. And in some small way known only to you, you have witnessed something no one else did. You were here when the sun disappeared. You were here when the world forgot to count. You were here when firelight was a language, and the trees whispered secrets into the dark. And still, you are here. So close your eyes. Let the breath slow. Let the weight slip away. And when you wake, whenever that is, remember this. The year passed. You did not. Sleep well. End of script. Sweet dreams.